This is CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer. With your host, Mr. Gameplay Goodness himself, Stevie Stroud.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to CoCoTALK episode 22. We are live on a Saturday. Today is April the 19th, 2017, and we've got a great show in store for you, ladies and gentlemen. And so with me on the call, we have the author of Forest Doom, all-around good-looking guy and damn fancy singer, too, Mr. Bruce Moore. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you.
And then we've got, what's-his-face up there, David Ladd. Hey, David.
Hello.
Oh, what's his face? Mark Overholzer with us as always. Richard Lorbieski is here. Ron Delvaux is here. And L. Curtis Boyle A is here. And Nick Marentes.
By the way, it's August, not April.
It's August. August, April, whatever, February, March, Ember, whatever the hell it's called. Yes, it's August. Yes, you are correct. Thank you. And then from down under, Nick Marentes. Good day, Nick. How are you?
Good day, everyone.
And maybe April down there, I'm not sure.
It's April. Yeah, you know us Americans, we can't spell. All right. So we got another great show. We got some cool things to talk about, some cool things to do. It's been another interesting week in the world of the color computer. And so, some of those highlights is that hopefully we'll find out for reasons unknown, but there's got to be a reason. But Nick Marentes has decided to release a 1.1 update to his Pac-Man game. So hopefully he'll share with us reasons. I know one of the reasons was, changing the color and stuff, but I'd like to be curious what was the kind of motivation there. So that's kind of cool. What else has been going on this week? Well, we got another demo from Simon Jonasson to take a look at, his 3D spinning cubes. Bruce Moore has been dipping his toes into the water of BASIC-09, so we'll show a little preview of that, maybe talk about that process and development a little bit. We're going to have Ron's Garage, where Ron's going to show us something pretty cool. We got Tech Talk with David Ladd and maybe Curtis Boyle, too, and who knows what else we're going to talk about. So, very cool. And live in the call, I want to first say hello to Steve Powell.
Hello.
So, Steve has been here since about 20 after 1 p.m. So, Steve's been here for a long time. He says he's doing other things. He just wanted to have it open and ready. So, you get the award for the first caller of the day for sure.
Treasure, 100 points.
So there you go. 100 points of treasure has been awarded to you. So and I will try not to overuse the soundboard today. I promise. Right? So got to have more cowbell. Right? So thanks for being here, Steve. We also have Richard Cavell in the call. And everybody else. So very, very cool. So let me go ahead and just look at some feedback and look at some numbers this week on a few things that have happened in the show. So let's start with looking at our most recent episode. So last week's episode of CoCoTALK right now has peaked the charts at 178 views right now. So that's still pretty good. We've been averaging about 200 views a week. You notice that episode 20 got about 211 views. Really popular topics was the hardware discussions, got 263 views. Our Nitrous 9 discussion, 250 views. So yeah, CoCoTALK has been getting some pretty good views right now. So we're just shy of 180 views from last week's talk is not too shabby. And I think one of the things that might be helping with that, or helping or hurting depending on how you look at it, but since we've been also now, CoCoTALK is also a podcast that you can listen to in audio format. We've had just shy of 400 downloads on podcasts this week. So 383 podcast downloads. And so I guess, how do you look at this? Do you look at this as competition? Am I competing with myself? I'm not sure. But, if people are listening rather than viewing, maybe that's why we have a few less views, but we've got a heck of a lot of listens. So all things combined, we're in about the 600 mark in this past week, which is pretty cool. So thank you for everybody who's been watching and listening. And then a couple comments from some of the stuff that's been going on YouTube. I got a comment recently on one of my programming and basic videos where this person, Alex Blackburn, said, "I love these videos, so in-depth and the only source that teaches us basic that I've found on the internet. Huge help." So thank you there, Alex. Rudy Kazuti, our friend from, I think he's in Ireland. He's the one who suggested I play that Ken Kalish game, right? Dungeon Raid. And then he's actually chimed in with some tips on the game. He says, a tip for anyone who's trying to beat, and his high score right now is 124,600. He made it to level 5. He says there's 5 levels. There's 3 levels, and then the game loops and the enemies speed up dramatically. So he's actually given us some tips. He's pointed out a glitch in the game. He's telling you when you got to steer left and what to look for and what to avoid and stuff. So I guess when you can spend some good quality hours on a game and you kind of get to learn the the insides and outs. So he shared some very good tips there. So check out that comment for some good playing tips if you want to get really proficient at Dungeon Raid. Now here's another cool one too. So this is how all this stuff happens. It's just like, things fall out of the sky. But Rob Shaw, the author of Shock Trooper and Tutankhamun and a handful of other games, he found my video on YouTube and he says, "It was so cool to see my game reviewed on YouTube 31 years after I wrote it, by the way. One inaccuracy here is that it was released in 1986 because I was in the university at that time." And then he said, "Well, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask." So I have basically said to him, would you like to do an interview? I sent him my email address, and hopefully we'll hear from Rob, and maybe we can line up a Rob Shaw interview. That would be very, very cool. All right?
Yeah,
so,
he's a nice guy. I talked to him back when I did the pages on the games page there for his stuff by email, and he actually gave me some tips, like there's some hidden features in 1 or 2 of the games and stuff too.
Okay.
So I'm hoping you can get him on for an interview. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. So, so then the question becomes: Is this a standalone interview? Do we make it part of CoCoTALK? That's really not that important as long as we get the interview. And speaking of interviews, one of the things I've been doing too is taking some of the older interviews that we've done and also converting those to audio. So right now on our website, CoCoTalk.live, there's the first 10 episodes are fully converted to audio and 3 different interviews. So there's the interview where Curtis and I first spoke at length. There's our first interview with Rick Adams, which I think it's pretty cool when you look back on things we discussed a year ago to what has happened then. It really goes to show you what's been going on in this community. Like Curtis brought up the discussion on an interview that Nick had with him like in 1999, where he had talked about, well, I made this game called Bomb Threat, but Tandy never bought it. And for me, that was the first time I ever heard of that, kind of lost gem, right? So we talked about that about a year ago in an interview with Rick. And of course, as most of us know now, he is about to release Bomb Threat again. So it's kind of cool to see how some of these things come full circle with some of these interviews. We did that interview, the Rick Adams interview, and the Dale Lear interview, which was another good interview too, I thought, and that was kind of co-interviewed with Rick Adams, and of course Curtis and Nick were there too. So a couple of good interviews, and all of those interviews I think played very well to the audio format when I listened to them. So I think we're getting some good positive response from people who are saying, I enjoy the fact I can now consume this show in a different way. So that was a great idea. That was Curtis's idea. I got to give Curtis all the credit for that. So remind me to pay you one of these days, Curtis. So going around the room here, who's got anything to chime in and be like, what has your week been like as far as projects and retro things and other items of interest? Anybody want to jump in there?
I haven't done too much because of work scheduled as usual during my rush season, but I have been trying to talk to Bruce and Nick a little bit when they were fiddling around with BASIC-09 and Nitrous 9 stuff. Just to see if I can help him out a tiny bit. I know Nick actually got a boot from Bill that ran pretty stably for him, which I think was unexpected for him, but we'll get into that in a bit more detail later.
Yeah.
Right before he shoots it all down.
Oh, you want me to talk about it?
Well, I guess if we go ahead and if you want to lead off, Nick, and we'll talk about Pac-Man 1.1.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I released Pac-Man 1.1, which isn't really very different from the previous version. It's just a few little things that always niggled me over the years that I wish I had done that. It was so simple to do. Why didn't I do it? So I thought, what the hell? We've had Glenn Hewitt's arcade transcode released lately, and that sort of inspired me to just do these little patches to finalize Pac-Man as such. There's no changes to the code. The code was really unchanged.
Okay.
The changes were done in the loader. So when the loader comes out, I changed that a bit. I removed the option for selecting PAL versus NTSC color and the 50 hertz, 60 hertz timings, because no one played it under the 50 hertz timings anyway.
Okay.
And over here in Australia, we select 60 hertz anyway, and 50 hertz tends to run it slightly slower. And because I had to make the game support both 50 hertz and 60 hertz, there was another problem in that I noticed in the intermission tunes. When playing the intermission, the timings were a little bit slower in order to compensate for the 50 hertz mode. And it always bugged me because I always thought the intermission tune was just a bit low in its pitch. So I removed the NTSC, the 50 hertz, 60 hertz option, made it all 60 hertz, and then just adjusted the timings for the intermission to run properly at 60 hertz. So that was the main thing I wanted to change. It always irked me that the pitch was wrong.
Okay.
The only other thing I changed also was the color of the maze. In the original, it was slightly a lighter blue, and it should have been a bit darker to match the arcade a bit more. So I just did a change to the color blue, and really that's about it. Nothing more. It's really otherwise really much the same. The loader has a little Pac-Man in it.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I like that. That was cute. It's better than the old bar going across.
Yeah. Well, it's essentially the same as the old bar, except instead of a bar, I've got a Pac-Man character eating all the dots, which I thought was more suitable for the game anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it reminds me of the Nintendo Wii when you do get your updates and you have the little arrow ring across as it's downloading the update, and he keeps bumping the coins up as the update downloads. It's kind of an animation of their own character, and you did the same thing.
Yeah. Sixy has joined us in chat, and Home Computer Museum says hi, everyone. Hello, Home Computer Museum. Richard Cavell is here in chat. Yeah, I'm going to see if I can get to the intermission, and I do notice that the blue is a little bit darker. Yeah, it's kind of cool that we do look at this again. It's just kind of, like you mentioned, that we had the Pac-Man transcode released recently. Out of curiosity, how long did all of that take you? Like, how many hours did you put into all these changes?
The changes didn't take too long. It was because I still had the source code, of course, for Pac-Man. So it was just a matter of looking at the code and just finding out what areas of memory the bytes were I had to change in order to make the change. And once I located the exact values in memory where they are, I then just went into the loader program. After it finished loading the program, it would just do a few pokes to change those to the new changes. And that's about it. The thing that took the longest was the little Pac-Man in the loader.
Okay.
I tried a few things, and that was the one I came up with. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to demo the loader, Steve, or?
I can do that. Yeah. It is kind of cool. So we'll show that. That's kind of cool. And yeah, of course, now getting me to make it to the second level is going to be a challenge because that requires somebody with actual game playing skills. So we will do, and of course I'm doing this on my CoCo SDC, brought to us by the makers of CoCo SDC. Here we go, Pac-Man Bass. I'm all about that bass, baby.
So that's the new options screen. it's only got 2 options, whereas the previous one had a few more. Just the selection of the RGB or composite. And I think I might have also tweaked the composite palette slightly as well. Because back when I wrote it, I didn't have a composite NTSC monitor, so I just whatever information I could find in a magazine saying this is the RGB to composite conversion, that's all I did, and I just assumed, okay, that must be right. But now that I do have an NTSC composite, I think some of the colors were slightly off, so I just tweaked those, and I've kept the option for the keyboard selection. One thing actually I wasn't sure of, because I hadn't played it for a while, I was wondering if I'd forgotten I had actually added joystick control in the game. Whenever I used to play it, I played it with the arrow keys, and of course I was terrible at it, and I couldn't understand, why am I playing it so badly? I used to play it much better than this. So I thought, oh well, I'm going to have to patch it to allow the joystick to work. But as it turned out, when I went through the code, I saw there was code in there already, because when the game starts, it doesn't really say press. Well, it does say.
It says press the button, I think.
It does say press joystick button, but for some reason I'd forgotten that the joystick actually worked. So the joystick's fine. Just press the button on the joystick and away it goes. And I think there was one fellow on the Facebook page was asking, if the keys work on under VCC, and I said, I'm pretty sure they do. So I tested it last night and put a message up saying, yeah, they do, but I don't recommend it, because it's just so awkward to play with a normal diamond cluster cursor.
Yeah, it's not very forgiving either on the.
No, my fingers tend to get stuck in a knot, basically. But joystick is the way to play Pac-Man, and that's the way to play it. And if you want to press enter to continue, most cases you don't need to change any of these settings.
There we go. Here's Mr.
And
Chompers.
there's the Pac-Man. High definition.
This is the ultra HD 4K right now, right? So
that's the one.
Yeah, that should almost be a meme, right? Because all the TVs now are called 4K. We should have something like, well, in my day, 4K meant something else.
Yeah, that was how much RAM we had in our computers.
That's right.
Yeah, so it is.
16K.
It is flashing on the screen right now. Press joystick button to play. And I don't have a joystick connected at the moment, but I'll try it one more time and see if I can't reach the intermission.
I'd also removed the serial number display on the title page, because when I sold it, I had it. Every copy was serialized, so I figure, well, if I'm going to just give it out for free, what's the point of the serial number? So.
You had alternate keys you could select too, like Alt Control and left right arrow or something, didn't you? Can't remember.
That was on a different game. I think that was on Gatecrasher.
3 or 4 option keys. Because I could never use
the old diamond cluster's way too.
I think that's the way I used to play it actually. Before I had the joystick hooked up, I would choose the keyboard options and choose Alt and Control and Alt for up and down, because that matched the CoCo 2 keyboard. And allowed your hands to be separate, and you could just more comfortably control it with the keyboard.
Yeah, back in the day, the Apple IIs only had just the left and right arrow, and so typically the games would use A and Z on the opposite side of the keyboard for up and down.
I remember that, playing Gorgon and a few others.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of an interesting comparison, too, because you did this, around 2007-ish?
Wasn't it earlier?
This is the update, yes. The original game was 1997.
Oh, 1997. Wow. Okay, so here it goes. In 1997. So what we have right now for the CoCo 3 is this is the original, or the first Pac-Man. Of course, this is not a licensed one. This is your port of Pac-Man, but you wrote this from scratch, and you had to take we talked about this a while ago. You had to kind of take your best guess at what the algorithms were for the patterns of the ghosts and things like that. you recorded with a cassette recorder all of the sounds and then digitized those. Which
that's
was
right. I didn't have the internet in 1997.
Yeah. Al Gore had not invented it yet. So, and you had to write the program. So you actually had to write your own version of Pac-Man. And so what we have now with the Glenn Hewlett version is not a custom from scratch version, but the actual arcade code has been transcoded. So we've got two versions of Pac-Man now. We've got Nick Marentes' version, which he wrote from scratch, and then we've got Glenn Hewlett's version that he basically converted from the arcade. And so for the time that you had done this in 1997, really, really impressive. And some of the choices you made to keep the aspect ratio of the board and the playing field. So you put the scores off to the side, so we have the full tall aspect ratio and things like that. And it plays very well. One of the things I did notice about Glenn's version, because Glenn's version is running the original code. The original code was written for 3 voice channel synthesizer, which we don't actually have. So every now and then we lose something in the audio. Because you actually had to write yours from scratch and you took all these things into consideration, I noticed that we always hear the sirens, and then we do hear either the wop 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 sound when he's blinking, or the kind of explosion sound when you eat them. So your audio decisions seem to favor the sounds that we need to hear the most at all times, where on the transcoded version, every now and then we're going to possibly miss something that would have been there, because the software's got to make that decision. Which 2 of the 3 channels do I output? But they're both great versions of the game, and both worthy of celebration. Very cool stuff.
One of the biggest challenges was to get the Pac-Man intelligence to be the same. Of course, nowadays you can go on the internet and find out what the actual intelligence is for the Pac-Mans, how they react, how they travel and navigate the maze. Of course, in 1997, that wasn't available. So I had to sort of come up with my own intelligence that at least looked like it was like from the original. And I think I got a fairly good interpretation of it. Seems to play very similar.
Oh yeah. No, it looks good, plays good. The slightly darker blue palette now for the maze looks much more arcade accurate. I had not noticed it that much before, but now that I see this, more of a navy blue, it definitely looks more arcade accurate. And yeah, I would imagine that has to present some challenges, because what's the maximum color palette of the CoCo? You got 64 colors, and most of the 8-bit games, and so 64 colors is what, 6-bit of color, something like that. And most of the arcade games had 8 bits of color, so we had 256 colors. So at some point in time, you've got to make a creative decision, saying, well, in the arcade it was this level of red, green, or blue, which requires a higher depth of bits per pixel, which we don't have. So we have to trade off somewhere. And you're never going to get every single color possible, because our palette is a much smaller palette of colors. So I guess certain decisions and compromises have to be made there, right, when you're making those choices.
Yeah, I don't know how the arcade, how many colors the arcade machine actually had. So I think a lot of arcades really may have only had 16 colors, but they could have varied the colors. I think they used some sort of a resistor bank or whatever to fine tune each of the colors. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the original arcade Pac-Man was a 16 colors on the screen at once, but I don't remember what their palette was.
What the palette capabilities were.
I think they were able to fine tune it.
Yeah, no, it's a damn good version there, and very nice of you to just release that to the public, right? So the other way to get that now, in the past it was available for sale when it was a new product. It's now part of the bundle. So if somebody buys Popstar Pilot from you, which you've also put on the Facebook group, it's included on that CD. Your entire catalog of CoCo games is now part of the Popstar Pilot package, which is a great value. Very, very cool. What do you guys think?
Now, Nick, do you have any inclination to go through some of your other previous games? Because I know you've mentioned there's a few other things that you wish you had done differently back in the day.
Well,
any plans for that, or just thinking about it, or?
Yeah, no, I was also thinking of going through my Gate Crasher as well, the 3D game I did, and it plays all right. But the thing is, there was two. Once again, there's at least two things that have niggled me ever since the beginning. So as usual, the niggles will eventually get to me. So one is the graphics have a bit of a fisheye look to them. Like straight lines tend to have a bit of a curve the further they go in the distance. That is a bit of a side effect of the Gloom engine that Sockmaster has, just the way it creates the 3D. And because I used a lower resolution than what Sockmaster did for his demo, it stands out a bit more. You can see corridors tend to have a bit of a fisheye. They curve in the distance a bit. So I was thinking of looking at that and trying to see if I can straighten them up a bit. The other thing also, I find that whenever I shot a target, it was very fussy. You very much had to hit a target spot on, and because it's low res again, everything tends to move fairly quickly in front of you. So one moment it's in front of you, the next moment it's moved away a bit, and quite often it looked like I'd hit something, but unfortunately by the time it actually fired, it would have moved that little bit and it missed. So I'm going to make that a bit more lenient on. You can be a bit off target a bit and it'll hit a target, so it'll be a bit less frustrating, hopefully.
Okay, because I do remember back, I think when we interviewed you, or maybe when I was talking to you at some point, I remember you mentioned that Rupert Rhythm, you'd always wanted to change the algorithm so that the elevators would always come up to where you were, as opposed to you having to wait for the whole stupid cycle. Yeah,
no, there's that one's got a lot of things I want to change, so that one's a big job. I don't like that one. I'm going to bury that one.
I wouldn't mind if you changed that one, because I've never actually wanted to see that ending show that it supposedly has. So kind of.
Well, maybe I'll put out a poke that you can do to bring it up immediately.
Well, I want to earn it somewhat. It's so frustrating when you're waiting for the thing to stop 4 times and it's going the other direction, and you're getting hit by those.
Can just add some text that says written in OS 9.
Well, then I'd just switch to another window and play something else. But
cool stuff.
Yeah, but that's all I have planned. Eventually.
Okay. Joystick support for that might be kind of cool too for the Gate Crashers. I don't know if that's a major rewrite at that point.
Yeah. That's right. It doesn't use joystick. Well, there's another good option. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah,
I remember when you and I were reviewing the game last year or whatever it was. So we were talking. I was saying if I had a wish list, it would be joystick support for that game, because it is a little bit tedious. When you're looking at like a Castle Wolfenstein Doom style game, those games played well with the joysticks even.
Yeah, it would give you more variability on speed for turning too, because right now you have like regular speed, or if you hold down shift, you get double speed. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start it this afternoon.
Should be done by next show, right?
Now you've given me more things to niggle about.
Yeah, right.
All we're actually doing is delaying Gunstar, apparently.
Yeah, right. Priorities, right? Priorities. So.
See, Nick can multitask without OS 9. See?
He single tasks. He just takes on a project for a week or two, and then
I stop the other.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Cooperative.
Let me interrupt us all for just a second here, because I want to take a commercial break, but for a very special reason. I have a very cool commercial I want to share with you guys, and we'll talk about it afterwards. I'll probably hear some of your reactions during the commercial, because I'm not going to mute your stuff. But we're going to take a quick pause for the cause. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back.
We will be back after these messages. Let the Radio Shack TRS-80 put the world of color computing into your home. Instant loading program packs turn any color TV into an exciting game arcade. And there's more. The color computer is an educational aid, a home management tool, and up-to-the-minute electronic information service. The programmable, expandable TRS-80 color computer from $399 only at Radio Shack, the biggest name in little computers.
Are you ready? For the forest of doom. Where can you catch all the latest news and information about the Tandy color computer and compatibles? Oh yeah, I'm talking about the CoCo Crew podcast. Dig it each month. Join John, Neil, and Mike as they lay down the latest news and information about the Radio Shack Tandy color computer and compatibles. Groove to interviews, tech segments, and discussions all about the Radio Shack Tandy color computer. Strut your fine self over to www.cococrew.org and start listening today. The CoCo Crew Podcast. Keeping it CoCo, dig?
Greetings, YouTubers. Atari Leaf here, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. You know, gameplay. To get your copy of a Gameplay Goodness color computer gaming DVD today, head on over to 8bit256.com. There you will find several DVDs featuring color computer gameplay videos by the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. So to get your very own copy of a Gameplay Goodness color computer gaming DVD, head on over to the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com and tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you. What'd you guys think of that?
Very groovy.
Somebody needs to lay off the acid.
I thought I was tripping balls there.
The sound seems to go in and out.
That was
Like John's comment.
So that was so that was a world premiere right there. Hey, John Linville is here. What's going on, John? So, John says, "Oh my God, I'm associated with hippies." I just threw together like a little funky slideshow to go with the music. I was really impressed with that. I like that. That Myro is one talented mofo, ain't he?
And John, I mean, Red Hat's open source, so isn't that kind of hippie-ish anyways?
And I wanted to come back real quick to get your reactions to that, but one more segment I want to add to our shows, because we're also going audio too. I thought it would be cool to put in little music bumpers in here too. So I've compiled an assortment of some CoCo music clips. So let's play a real quick CoCo music clip real quick too, because I had a lot of fun listening to these guys. So this was a random video game music track for your listening pleasure. Hold on one second. There we go. Frogger and Megabug. A little bit of CoCo music for your listening pleasure. So look forward to more musical interludes on future episodes of CoCoTALK as well. So, yeah. Cool commercial, right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
I'm still tripping balls from it. But yeah.
Dig. Get your groove on with the CoCo Crew. Dig. That is some good stuff. And we're anxiously awaiting the next episode of the CoCo Crew podcast. No pressure. No pressure, John. Just Oh man. Okay, so that was cool. So Nick, thanks for doing that update of Pac-Man 1.1. We're definitely looking forward to future tweaks to some of your other classics, but if Gunstar. 2 words, Gunstar.
Eventually.
Oh man. Good stuff.
The only other bit of news is that in 2 weeks I'm presenting a talk about all my programming exploits, everything from the TRS-80 Model 1 and the color computer. And I'll be demoing some of the color computer stuff that I've done, and generally the color computer itself. But I'll be demoing it at a Apple Fest. I'm going to an Apple II Fest. So I don't know how that'll go.
Make sure you wear body armor.
And I'll educate a few Apple II people about what our CoCo can do. Or I'll just come home with a face full of tomatoes. So
go to Apple Fest and get tomato bathed. Yeah. Norlander in the chat too. Sorry for not acknowledging you sooner. Says I get a kick out of those commercials for the CoCo 1 in 1982 when I bought my first CoCo with 32K. It cost me $649 Canadian. So yeah.
when I bought mine in the late summer of 1981, 4K was $549 Canadian.
Wow. That's cool, Nick. That's and I know we talked about this briefly. And if you're able to take pictures or video or something, it'd be kind of cool to have you be our correspondent and show us what some other festivals are like. And speaking of festivals, I wanted to talk about this, and I don't know if John's still there. And John, if you want to call in on Skype and join us, we'd love to have you, John W. Linville. But one of the things that the CoCo crew was talking about when they every week they talk, but every month they talk about the different events that are coming. So they talk about VCF and Kansas Fest and all these things. And for the longest time, they were talking about Coleco Expo. And the big running joke with Coleco Expo is that it's featuring whatever her name was, some 21-year-old chick from some Disney show. I forgot her name, Sophie Lawrence or Sophie Reynolds or something like that. But so Coleco had this expo, and I think it was just earlier this month. It was recently. It was within 2 or 3 weeks ago. And there was a little bit of drama surrounding this Coleco Expo. And because I'm also a member of a group on Facebook that's called ColecoVision Lunatics, and there's another one called ColecoVision Fan. So for those of you guys who aren't aware, whoever currently owns the company Coleco, Coleco's been a dead entity since 80-something, whenever. Somebody bought up the name, bought up the rights, and they're now trying to promote Coleco. What they did was basically poo-poo on the communities and the fan sites and everything else, and they went after any Facebook page that had the name Coleco or ColecoVision in it, went after these different websites, went after everybody, and really tried to strong-arm the community, which you can't survive without your community. And there were a bunch of videos posted on Facebook in this ColecoVision group. People are walking around with their phones, and it was a disaster. It was a huge area, so they had a giant space, but these people are walking around in the middle of the day on a Sunday. All the vendors are sitting there twiddling their thumbs. It was maybe a couple of dozen people were there, and it was a train wreck. And I'm not saying this because I'm happy about this. I don't take any joy in one of these festivals not doing well, because at the end of the day, if I was a vendor and I had spent money, I would have hopefully had a turnout to be able to sell something, So I feel bad for the vendors. I feel bad for the people who showed up wanting a good experience and didn't have one. But I think the lesson to be learned there is that you can't have these festivals without the community support. And when you kind of pee all over that community, this was karma. Karma came back big time. And it's tragic and it's sad, because I would love to see all retro things succeed. So I'm really looking forward to what you're going to be doing, Nick, in Australia there with this Ozfest for the Apple. Because even though, yes, we've had our rivalries in the past and stuff, we don't truly hate them. Well, maybe David Ladd, but But you know, we hopefully we've grown up enough now where we don't have those same rivalries where, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I want this Apple Fest to succeed. We obviously want Tandy Assembly to succeed, and there's no reason why it won't, because it's embracing the community. It's embracing several communities. But I just think that it was probably kind of worth mentioning that, you know, one of these things didn't go well, and it's unfortunate that it didn't, but take notes, right? Don't forget the communities themselves that make that, you know, that attend to these things. Yeah, so if you can bring back photos or video or anything else while you're there, it'd be great to play those on a future CoCoTALK, just kind of corresponding on another event in a foreign land even, you know. So,
hey, Steve, can I say something about that?
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I'm, of course, a longtime Apple guy and only recently into CoCos. But, you know, I see from the Apple side, a lot of the Apple people who were Apple started with Apples, which is, you know, kind of a limited group compared to, because the cost was so much more than a lot of the other systems. Mm-hmm. But as it's gone on, they've kind of wondered, you know, what was it about those Ataris or the Commodores or the Tandys, you know? And so they've bought in other systems, you know, the other people that are into this still. And then on the other side, there are a lot of people that have come to the Apple recently because they were a CoCo, you know, owner, or an Atari or Commodore, and they, you know, I used those in school, and, you know, I never could get one, and now I can get one. Right.
So true. There's definitely crossover, and there's and hopefully not only is there crossover interest, but I'm assuming there's even crossover camaraderie between these communities, because I know John Linville has mentioned all the time that if you go to Kansas Fest, it's like a summer camp for Apple people, but they let Commodore people in there, and they let us in there, and we get along. So same thing with these Commodore festivals and stuff. So I think these other communities are welcoming of other fans of other systems, and you hit the nail on the head there. Like, I was lucky to have the CoCo when I was a kid, and you know, and I had to take a job to afford it and stuff. There was no way I could have afforded 2 or 3 systems back then. There's no way I could have had a CoCo and an Apple and a Commodore and an Atari. The CoCo was about the most affordable system, or one of the more affordable ones. Nowadays, I'm lucky I have an Atari 8-bit system. I haven't actually powered it up yet, but I have one. I've always wanted one. If I could get my hands on an Apple II, would I get one? Oh, hell yeah. Right? So to have your hands on that nostalgia, and would I be a fan of it? Yes, I would. But even now, it's like I have in a box 4A. I've yet to take it out of the box. And I think I got it for $40. So, you know, if I could get an Apple for $50, if I can get a Commodore for under $100 or something like that, I'd probably grab them to have them, put them on a shelf to display them, and, you know, fire them up. I'm always going to go back to the CoCo. I'm going to spend my most time on the CoCo, but sure, I'd love to have one to play with and hook up and maybe record some videos and show off what it's like. If I would love to be able to go to all these conventions, you know, VCEs and the Southern Fried Gaming Expo and the World of Commodore. I would love to attend all these things just to see what everybody else is doing too, you know. So it's great that Nick has that opportunity.
Hey, Mark, I was going to ask you about that, because, I mean, I remember back in the 80s, I mean, the rivalry between the different 8-bit systems was pretty heated. I mean, everybody was fighting for their own platform.
Yeah,
I think there's still a little bit of a rivalry, but it's more of a friendly rivalry. It's just like, you know, well, we can do good stuff too type of thing. It's not a, you know, your system sucks and mine's great like it used to be back in the 80s. Is that your kind of view and what you see? Because you're probably more involved with some of the other platforms than I am.
Yeah, it is. You know, there was and back in the day, the Commodore rivalry was, well, we got this really great sound chip and graphics. Yeah, but your disk drives really suck. But we got these fast load cartridges. Yeah, I know. I have a couple myself. They work pretty good. But, you know, and nowadays I think everybody's matured a lot, you know, and they realize each platform has its strength. I mean, the Commodore 64 has its graphic and sound chip, you know, and the disk system, it's pretty weak. The Apple, you know, doesn't have any hardware support and just 1-bit sound, but it's got a pretty good disk system, very flexible. You know, 80 column was, you know, early on very, very viable, even in the early 80s. You know, and so...
And it was expandable. You had 6 cartridge slots, which most machines didn't.
Yeah, which didn't have. You know, you had to buy the MPI or the Commodore. Man, the Commodore 64, you know, you're lucky if you found one that had a pass-through card. I don't think they ever made anything. I think they made some later for the Commodore that would let you have multiple slots. But, yeah, the MPI is really great on the Tandy. You know, and then I don't really know that much about the Atari, but it did have the Pokey for the sound, and it was a player missile graphics, basically sprites. And their disk system was okay too. But, you know, people have matured and they've got to the point where they realize there's differences. You know, the CoCo, what's cool about it is it actually has a better processor than pretty much all the others because it's not strictly 8-bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and besides, you know, and then decent graphics, of course. But, you know, still short on there's no sound chip like the Commodore or the Atari had. But anyway. Yeah, just people have gotten more mellow, I think, and they realize the strengths and weaknesses of each, and now they try to collect them because hey, they can.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, to be honest, growing up in the '80s, the Atari versus the TI versus the Tandy versus the Apple, et cetera, kind of reminded me of the '90s part when it was like Mac versus Windows type thing. It was the heated rivalry.
Versus Next versus Sun.
Yeah, in the live chat, Sixy, who's Karen, says, I guess the Apple equivalent here in the UK would be like buying the BBC Micros, which was really expensive at the time. And Solstice says, rivalry done right motivates innovation.
I have to agree with that. Rivalry without hate, actually, I think it does, because you kind of compete with each other. And I'm going to see if I can do something better. It's a friendly rivalry.
And when it comes to communities, just like the CoCo was an underdog when it was current, our community, as far as the size of our community, is somewhat of a minority number, I would think, too, because when you look at something like Atari Age or some of these other communities, because there were much more units sold over the time, too, there's a larger fan base. And so, and you see similar things happening in those communities where people are making new brew games onto cartridges, and people are pushing the limits of like the Atari 2600. Most of the new brew stuff on the Atari 2600, you look at it, you're like, wow, why couldn't somebody do that back in 1980? The same thing we say about the CoCo, because you didn't have the time, or you learn more with time goes on. Yep. So the new brew community on almost all of the 8-bit platforms. John Linville has posted one of the games that somebody wrote for the Apple II that he was selling it in the package with the Ziploc bag and the cassette tapes and all that kind of stuff. So the authentic packaging. So it's great that these things still happen. These communities exist, and people are developing new hardware, new software. The CoCo SDC, a version of that exists for just about every 8-bit platform. I just listened to Randy Kindig talk about Ian Maverick's, all his products, the thing that's called the Fred, which is a hard drive emulator that uses an SD card or a compact flash, whatever the case was. So we've all got these new brew hardware and software devices that are pushing the systems and showing what they can do and what they could have done. And so I like that statement there, that we can kind of motivate innovation, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
And to be honest, I think that's why John brings up a lot of these other shows about other platforms, or even projects from other platforms, as an inspiration to see what they're able to do, and inspire somebody to do something similar, or get inspired by it to do something even beyond on the CoCo side.
Definitely. Okay, David Ladd says I'm going to have to go. David says he's going to have to go soon. I was getting ready to ask. I'm sorry, Nick, to cut you off before we get right back to Nick. So I was going to say who wanted to go next on their segment. So we'll let David go next. Go ahead, Nick. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I might take Mark McDougall's Apple II port of LoadRunner and run it on the Apple CoCo.
That would be good. That'd be good to show off at
I can do it too.
Apple Fest.
See if I can start rivalry again.
Right?
Then I will come home with a face full of tomatoes.
Whatever you can do, we can do better. Louis Fernandez is here.
Talking about all that rivalry, during the Apple Fest, we actually have got planned to go and attend a Commodore meeting. I don't know if it's a fest nearby, actually. There's a Commodore 64 mini one-day event happening nearby, and that's going to be one of the things that we're going to do. We're all just going to, the whole Apple Fest people are just going to go to the Commodore 64.
We'll crash the party.
That's cool. That's cool. Just make sure you bring your...
Keep your rivalry going. No.
It reminds me of like the old gang war movies of the 70s. Make sure you got your leather jackets and your baseball bats and your chains wrapped around your hands and stuff. So.
The Apple gang.
The Apple gang. Warriors, come out and play. In the live chat, we've got Feiscap is here and Luis Fernandez. And David, you ready for your tech segment?
As best as I'm going to be, I guess.
Well, before we start your tech segment, I need to go to the infographic card. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
This is a professional production here, folks. Expect nothing less. Hold on one second here.
The bar is raised.
It's time for Tech Talk with David Ladd and Curtis Boyle. Take it away, tech dudes.
Take it away, tech dudes. It's Tech Talk.
Actually, before we get to the Tech Talk, I just want to go one step back for the rivalry for a second. I remember in high school, we had Apple II Pluses. We had a whole lab full of them. And occasionally they would let us stay late on Friday nights and just play games, until the janitors kicked us out because they wanted to go home. And there was a few times where we actually had all the other kids that had different machines, VIC-20s, Commodore 64s, CoCos, etc., would bring them in, and we'd play like the rival or the same games that were ported to the different machines. And I remember the Apple people, when they first saw the CoCo version of Zaxxon, were really impressed compared to the Apple II version of Zaxxon. Mm-hmm. So we had this friendly rivalry even going in. We had all these machines set up side by side, and people would jump over and play somebody else's machine. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
We had that rivalry between kids. A lot of the kids had different computers at the time. I had a TRS-80. Another fellow had an Apple. We used to call him the Apple user. Another guy, I remember, had a Sinclair ZX80 or 81. Remember those?
Yeah, the ram tone keyboard.
Yeah. And those things, whenever it had to write to the screen, it couldn't refresh the screen at the same time as writing to the screen.
Yeah, so it'd flash.
It would flash. Even while you're typing a basic program, it would go on off. And I remember we used to stir this guy who had this. Every time we walked up to him, we'd say, I can't remember his name, but to say it was Bill. Oh, hi, Bill, how are you? And we'd say that blinking our eyes at him.
The computer had Tourette's.
We used to bug the people with those there. Have you had your epileptic seizure yet? It would just flash like a strobe light if you're trying to type a program.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we are now going to be talking about Tech Talk with David Ladd, and Tech Talk is sponsored to you by amacoconut.com. For all your color computer needs, make sure you visit amacoconut.com. All right, David Ladd, how are you today this week, sir?
Oh, not too bad. Not really too much in the realm of breaking stuff. Just found a couple issues with the Toolshed project, but those were pretty quick fixes, thankfully. So as far as only interesting hardware tidbit that I saw that someone pointed out, I think it was Richard Cavell, had mentioned was Ron's thing with the CoCo SDC and the real floppy drives, where the floppy drives weren't shutting off. Now, I have not been able to verify this because my power supply that I use to power my floppy drives died, so I can't use real floppy drives at the moment. But I'm thinking that the issue that he described, which is when he did a backup using the CoCo SDC from a real floppy drive to the SDC's image, the floppy drives were staying on after the backup was done. And I'm thinking that's just because the CoCo SDC's, the SDC DOS is not switching back to the slot that has the floppy disk controller to actually turn off the floppy drives. So that's the only little real major thing that I've seen this week that would be, an annoyance, but it's not that bad of a fix.
Yeah, can I chime in here? I tried the poke that somebody left on the board to see if that would turn it off, and it didn't. And I tried a different ROM, and that didn't make any difference. It still did it. So.
Yeah, because if the slot's not selected, it won't get through to the controllers.
Yeah, that's that other poke that I gave, which was to the AND H FF7F, AND H 23. The first value should be the ROM slot, and then the second half of that value is the actual I/O. So like where it says AND H23, the 2 is the ROM slot, and the 3 is the I/O slot. So that should have worked, because I actually had tested it here on my MPI to see, how things were working back and forth. So it should have worked.
I just tried the one poke.
The FF40 one?
Yeah, 40 comma, is it comma 0?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to shut the drive motors off. But if as David's saying, if the MPI's hardware select, like where I/O is supposed to go, is set to a different slot, the drive will never see it. So of course it won't shut off. So if you combine his poke with the FF40, like do his poke first to select the slot, and then do it, that would prove that is the issue, that it's not reselecting the slot properly.
You know, it turns off though if you hit reset.
Well, yeah, that's because the chip and the components are designed to reset back to a 0 state on reset. So
review what the issue was originally too. You have a real floppy controller in which slot? That's always supposed to be in slot 4, right?
Okay, I had slot 4 was the floppy controller. Mm-hmm. Slot 3 was the SDC.
Okay.
And no other boards are in there. And then I would put the script in to unload drive 0, and then I would turn off drive 1 so that I'd use that from my drives, and then I would put the expression in to save a program on the SDC, and it would say okay, and then I would do a backup 1 to 0, and it would go back and forth. Actually, the drive stays on, and the little light on the SDC goes on and off. And then when that's all done, the drive light stayed on, and the OK prompt came up.
So it acted like it
stay on, yeah.
It acted like it went through the processing, right?
Yeah.
But what was the end result? You got a corrupted disk on your copy?
No,
or?
nothing. No, the only issue
it didn't even run.
The only issue is that the drive stayed on.
So it did do the copy properly, though, right?
Yeah, it did. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't know why, but I thought I saw a picture where you were mentioning there was some contamination or something like that. Too. No. Okay.
In fact, it was kind of just something to talk about, I guess, because it's an issue, but it's really nothing. If I hit reset, everything stays the same, and the motor stops. So, I mean, it's no big deal. Although sometimes people get nitpicky and they want to make everything perfect, you know.
Yeah.
So I just thought.
Yeah.
I'm sure Nick has no idea what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, that's something that we probably should point that out to Darren, because that's probably something that should be an easy fix for him to do in SDC DOS, because it's just something it should switch back to the slot that the FDC's in and shut off the drive when it's done, and then switch back to the slot that the SDC's in.
Yeah, but, I thought maybe the SDC was controlling, and then it would stop just before it turns, or maybe it was the floppy drive controllers working, and then it stops abruptly because the SDC takes over or something like that.
No, it's all software control at this point.
Okay.
Because normally for this was something that was brought up with that MAME issue. Not related, but it's a similar technique, is that for keeping your floppy disk access faster, you have all your drives running, so that way you can quickly have access to each drive. When you switch from one to the other, the motor's already running.
Yeah,
so
you don't wait
have
for it to spin up. Yeah.
Right. So basically, in the case of multi floppy disk controller setups, you do the same thing, because there's been people that have run multiple floppy disk controllers in the CoCo before. So using the SDC and a real FDC is no different than using 2 or 3 real FDCs. You just have to have the MPI, you do pokes, you switch slots, copy the data in, switch slots, copy the data back out. It's same technique from the mid-'80s. So it's just something that probably was just slightly overlooked. Might have to bring it up to Darren Atkinson, because he's the one that handles the firmware and the SDC DOS patches. So,
Can you say he's not on Facebook at all?
No, there's actually quite a few people that refuse to use Facebook.
We've had this conversation, which
and we're I don't think this is probably because everybody has their likes and dislikes, and this is, it's a respect if they choose not to use it, that's their choice. So
yeah, I'm friends with a guy who had a little company called Sportswear. I don't know if you guys ever remember that in Rainbow.
Yep.
But he was in Toledo, Ohio, and I bought my first machine from him. And he made a bunch of disc utilities, and he was into war games and did some war games. Anyway, I sent a message to him. He says he's only on Facebook for his daughter. His daughter is she's a girl that goes on TV and does spots on TV. What do you call it? Like she's a reporter.
Okay.
And so he just follows her on there. And I said, well, things are really happening in the CoCo world. And this was a while back when I did it. And then I did it again on Messenger. I said, you might want to take a look and see if your sportswear company can maybe come back into being again, And I said, there's emulators and stuff. Take a look. And then I left the link for the website, the Facebook group.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. He's a really nice guy. He had a window company. My wife worked for him, and they used Model 4s and had BASIC-09 back then. They actually ran the business with it. It was ThermoGuard windows.
Yeah, the choices people make on how they choose to communicate are they're as unique as the individuals themselves, and so I get some people don't want to divulge their privacy and etc. And I'm not here to cast judgment, but it is sure a hell of a lot easier to communicate via Facebook than it is the mailing list or a Yahoo group or the IRC chat. Or I can't speak to the IRC chat. I've never been on there. Once the 21st century hit, I started using some of those tools. And this is the paradigm of everything: is that yes, we are fans of a retro machine, but I also know that there are modern conveniences, and I choose to use those for most things. Retro is a hobby; it's not a lifestyle. So if there's a modern form of communication, I will choose that. And yes, there's concerns with privacy and everything else, and that's not what this show is about. But yeah, the fact that we have a mailing list, a Facebook group, an IRC chat, that there are some Yahoo groups still out there, possibly some smoke signals happening, maybe some crop circles are going on somewhere, maybe there's a couple of coffee cans with very long strings somewhere else. Plenty of ways to communicate. I'm not here to judge. I just know for me, Facebook is really super convenient.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for all the rib systems to come back online through Telnet so we can fight on it and get the echoes going again.
Yeah. So I just think that's funny. When we talk about we're trying to bring our community together, there are so many different ways that we're already separated from each other. There's OS9 versus, Disc, Standard Color, Basic, you name it. Good stuff. So this is an issue. This is now another known issue. We're discovering issues. David is the guy who we say he breaks things, but what he's really doing is he's finding the flaws in the matrix, right? So he's finding the glitches in the matrix, and he's communicating that, and we're hopefully getting those patched. So one of the glitches that we discovered not too long ago was the MAME floppy controller emulation that actually could lead to disk corruption. So that's not a good thing, right? And so that is kind of got a workaround still happening. Then there was something you mentioned. You just barely mentioned it at the beginning, David, and I don't know how much time you have left, but the whole toolshed thing that you're also involved in. Do you have time to talk a little bit about toolshed and some of the limitations of FAT32 and 32-bit operating systems and stuff? Or
okay. Well, there's, as far as the toolshed project, for most people with like the CoCo SDC and DriveWire, most people have been using, because really in practicality, 128 megabyte hard disk image is more than enough for OS9 and all the available software for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know
just interject one thing, I think, because not all viewers are going to even know what toolshed is. Maybe we should explain what is this thing we're talking about.
Yeah, the toolshed project was put together to give different utilities that you could have on Linux, Mac, and Windows, so that you could manipulate, create, and transfer files between that native OS and the disk images for like OS 9 or Disk Extended Color Basic disk images. There's even a tool in there for working with cassettes. There's a cassette or the Color Extended Basic executable for doing cassette stuff. So there's all these tools that's in there to make your virtual CoCo life a little easier. So it's just little things that, since I've been doing this as experiments, because we've been doing all these, virtual hard disks with the CoCo SDC, DriveWire, and of course it's like, well, Nitrous 9 or OS 9 period could handle up to a 4 gig volume. And back in the 80s, that's like way forward thinking, because who the hell would think about wanting a 4 gig worth of storage? That's like insane, but
yeah, with a machine with 64K RAM.
So and so I started trying to create an actual 4 gigabyte disk image for OS 9. And that's when I started running into little hiccups. Like if you're on a 32-bit OS, when you compile the toolshed, well, 32 bits, your cutoff is a 2 gig file. So if your disk image, if you want a 4 gig disk image, you can't do it. Unless you, during compilation, you have to tell it to use 64-bit file offset values. So that's something that no one ever thought of. So that's something that was just a minor tweak. Tormod's already taking care of that on the repo. So now when you build it, whether it's a 32-bit OS or 64-bit, now the file offset stuff's been taken care of.
Okay.
The other thing is that there was a routine to automatically detect the best cluster size. So that way, because you only have, I believe, 2 bytes, Curtis, for the bit map.
The sector map, you mean, or cluster map? Yeah, you have
bit map.
You have 2 bytes for the, like you have 16 bits.
Right.
16-bit number, and then each bit represents a cluster. So you've got 65,535 times 8.
Yeah, which is 5,420. Yeah, 524,280.
Has this become math talk?
Clusters.
let me do that in hex.
So it's just certain things that the way the routine that was in there to determine the automatic clusters was ending up that it would flip the value, and then at a 4 gig image, the cluster size was 0. So of course, when you're trying to do that, well, you can't divide a value by 0, so you get a floating point error. So there's just been some submissions that will eventually be put onto the repo to correct for that, and then there's other things that have already been corrected. So it's just a work in progress, that just little things that no one ever thought of would be 4 gig, so.
Yeah, because nobody had really tried to push it to the 4 gig limits. And then you were hitting some problems, I think, with FAT32, like for older Windows systems, that the file system itself for Windows can't handle a file bigger than 2 gig.
Right, and for the people that use a CoCo SDC, if you want a hard disk image, a 2 gig image is the max that you can use on the CoCo SDC, because it uses FAT32 on the SD cards. So you just can't.
So the breaking news is right now, if you want to create a virtual hard drive, unfortunately we are limited to 2 gigabits and 2 gigabytes in size.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And with the vast array of CoCo software, how are we ever going to squeeze all that into 2 gigs?
For Nitrous 9 stuff, 128 meg should be more than enough.
Right,
So, some people, see, for me, I like to go to the extreme. Can it do it? Okay, let's push it. And that's how you find the problem.
I gotta have more cowbell.
I have to say, though, we could start actually hitting this limit if we get the drivers in Nitrous 9 to handle the streaming function of the newer SDC stuff, and you start throwing podcasts on there and video versions of the podcast. Please. These will be many, many megabytes and sometimes gigabytes.
There you go.
You may start running out of room.
Okay, that's a terrible problem to have that we will then have to address. Right?
Yes. Well, Dave's already starting. He's forward thinking.
He's forward thinking.
You can also have multiple cards.
Yes, we need to pause the research on mail enhancement and get back to priorities and getting our hard drives in order here, folks.
That is to run the CoCo SDC because you can handle up to a 32 gigabyte SD card in the CoCo SDC, so you could have multiple 2 gig virtual hard disks. So that's really not a bad thing. I know some people want to try putting Nitrous 9 and multiple virtual disk basic volumes on one hard disk image, but if you're on the CoCo SDC, technically, do you really need to do that? Because you just mount.
Well, right. You could also ask the question, did you really need to push the 2 gigabyte boundary barrier on a hard drive? So, to each their own. So.
Well, that depends on how long our CoCo Talks get. If we digitize the video version of it and throw it on a card to play it on a real CoCo using the streaming, yeah, you might. These 3.5-hour shows might be pushing something. So.
That's
we'll have to ask Ed. I don't know how much is transcoding to the CoCo on the CoCo SDC, how much a 3.5-hour video show would take.
Right. All right. Well, I think we need to take another break here in just a minute because I also have to take a restroom break. But who wants to go next after our break? Ron or Bruce? Would you guys like to go next?
Let Bruce go. I can wait.
Okay.
I'm in no rush. I wasn't. Yeah.
All right. Well, don't fight over it too much, guys. All right. Well, we're gonna take a commercial break. I'll be back in a few minutes and we'll pick this up. So very cool. Thanks, Dave.
All right. Later, everyone.
We will return after these messages.
Hey everybody, this is Bill Noble, co-author of Nitrous 9. You are listening to CoCoTALK Live, the leading live CoCo Talk show.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
This year, I needed to give a real family pleaser.
Honey, please, help me with this budget.
How about a new game, Dad? Please.
And I found it. Radio Shack's Color Computer 2. On sale for just $99.95. It entertains, educates, manages. It's expandable and affordable. Now that really pleases me.
The Color Computer 2. Sale priced for Christmas. Only at Radio Shack.
Hey guys, Stevie Stroh here. And if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com, featuring hand-drawn custom designs and pixel art by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. We've got the brand new official CoCoTALK t-shirt, I'm a Coconut t-shirt, and all kinds of other cool video game and arcade-related artwork. Check out 8bit256.com for all your retro swag needs today.
Some people have big plans after school. You know what Elliot's going to do? Jeff, too. Elliot's at work on a book report using Scripted on Radio Shack's Color Computer 3. It hooks up to his TV. And Jeff's at his Radio Shack Color Computer 3 playing the newest football game. But wait, what's Elliot doing playing new Super Pitfall? And Jeff's having a blast with a new math tutor. You never know what you might try with more than 100 programs for fun and learning. Radio Shack's Color Computer 3 comes with everything you see here. Other items each sold separately. Only at Radio Shack.
Hey guys, Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're listening to CoCoTALK, chances are you're interested in the color computer. If you'd like to find out more about the color computer, then visit my CoCo links page at imacoconut.com. There you will find communities, podcasts, YouTube channels, project sites, blog sites, hardware, software, buy, sell, trade, you name it. So for all things color computer, visit imacoconut.com. That's I-M-A, coconut.com, and tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
Hey everybody, this is Bill Noble, co-author of Nitrous 9. You are listening to CoCoTALK Live, the leading live CoCo talk show.
What's going on, everybody? The Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and I want to talk to you about I'mACoconut.com. If you love the color computer like I love the color computer, then you got to visit I'mACoconut.com, your one-stop shop for all of your Tandy color computer links needs. There you'll find links to blogs and podcasts and project sites and emulators and downloads and groups and communities. If you love the color computer, head on over to I'mACoconut.com. That's I-M-A, Coconut.com. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you. Coco forever, people. And we are back. So what was your question there, Curtis? Any thoughts on getting video bumpers as well as just audio with a still photo? What do you mean by that? Ah, you're muted, Curtis.
Sorry about that. The bumpers that you got, like with Bill and Rick and stuff here, with just a still photo and then they're just speaking in the background. I was just wondering if you thought, and given any thought to them actually doing a recording of them talking.
Yeah, I have to go with what is sent to me. So when I'm sent an audio clip, the best I can do is put a still photo to it. I actually have some. I have at least one video bumper, but yeah, whatever people send me is what I will play. So I
didn't know if you had a stipulation you wanted it only one way.
No, I just asked for it, and I'm happy. You know what? I'm just happy I got something.
Okay. I'll do one in about a month when I get some time.
Yeah. Cool. All right, so flip a coin. Do we want to do the Bruce Moore OS 9 discussion, BASIC-09 discussion? Yes, Bruce, you're muted too.
Yeah.
Oh, no, okay. Never mind. You just weren't. Your lips were moving. That's so cool.
He's giving his mime talk.
Or do we want to look at Ron Delvaux's very cool digitizing sample? You want to show us your stuff, Ron?
Do what you want, bud.
Before you do, though, I have to introduce you properly, all right? So we have got a proper introduction for Ron. So hold on just a second, folks, and be prepared to be impressed here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Ron's Garage with Ron Delvaux, featuring a peek into the past with Ron's retro collection. Take it away, Ron. Hello. How do you like that? Grant is here. Grant Leighty has joined us too. Hey, Grant. Welcome to CoCoTALK, and feel free to join us in Skype. So, Ron, we certainly appreciate you. You have been posting all kinds of cool pictures on Facebook and on the CoCo group and the Tandy 1000 group. You've got an impressive collection of a lot of really cool vintage hardware. And we're very pleased to have you share some of that with us. And today you're going to show us something really cool that's been running in the background. So tell us about what you got.
All right, first off, I want to show you that these are some of the things that I have in my collection.
Oh, wow. That is a
dust covers
sealed in plastic.
Computer 3 dust cover in the box.
In the bag.
And a hard drive cover.
Oh, a dust cover for the hard drive. Perfect for all your proper ventilation needs.
Perfect for ventilating your hard drive.
Yes.
Has anyone ever had their stuff in storage and pulled it out, and you've got an old cover, and it kind of has changed over the years to a sticky, ugly thing? Anybody?
Yes, my CoCo 1 cover did that.
Oh, yeah, like because like rubber starts to deteriorate over time too. Rubber becomes really sticky and nasty and stuff. Yeah. And can you grab me a drumstick from over by the TV too? There's a blue drumstick. Okay, we have a special treat when you're done.
Some rainbows that were made like a newspaper.
Oh wow!
The last ones before they went under.
That is really neat.
I have a large collection. I think they were in 1992.
Wow, really nice, looking rainbows.
Huge heads. It's just like the rainbow, only supersized.
Wow, and it's in color.
It was the last year and a half of rainbows. I think they did that as a cost-cutting measure for the old gloss.
That's really nice.
In fact, if I remember, Nitrous
Sundog
9, that was
systems.
The first ad was in one of those.
Yep, pretty neat. And then I have this digitizer running over here. It's the DS-69B, I think. I had an A, and what happened was the thing stopped working. And so I sent it back to them, and they made it a B and sent it back to me fixed, which was cool. I did have a lot of time on it. Basically, I'm going to show you how it loads up and shows the MicroWorks thing. Can you see it, Clint?
We can see it, but now because you're full screen, I have all the thumbnails, the little smaller icons. There you go. There you go. Pan down.
Right.
That's perfect.
That?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
And while you're doing that too, I just want to make one comment too, because I realized something I said a long time ago in the interview when I was playing back. I think it was maybe the Dale Lear interview, because when you look at Skype, whoever's full screen is big. And so I mentioned something like, we have Dale Lear, and beneath him are some smaller icons. And I realized that somebody listening to that might think that had to do with somebody's significance in the grand scheme of the CoCo universe, which wasn't the implication there. It was really just that the thumbnails of their faces were smaller than his face there. But when I was listening to that playback, I'm like, wow, that probably sounded kind of schmucky. But yeah, we have these little thumbnails of everybody else in the Skype call, and here we go. So we're looking at this CoCo screen.
The program's called CC, C-SEE. And it runs a basic loader, and then you see the MicroWorks.
Oh yeah, I like that little graphical title screen there.
Yeah, and then it's just like your basic thing. It has at the top it says you can show your control panel, and it has I have this joystick, which is probably another neat thing. It has 2 buttons.
Yes.
See if I can orient myself right. There's a button on the front and on the top. Anyway, it doesn't support the other button on this one, but anyways, you can toggle back and forth and change the value. And then at the very top, let's see, it says 16 level picture menu, take a 5 level picture, fast scan level picture, 5 level picture rather, printer menu, you can print it. Disk menu can change to drive 0 or to drive 1. Cassette menu, you can save it to cassette, believe it or not. And you can exit the program, and you can toggle the picture with the main menu, which is basically going for what's in the memory. So I put it on fast scan 5 level picture, and that's the control panel.
Wow.
Button, there's
That's so impressive. That is so impressive that
it's low level. You can do there's a bunch of different levels. If you go to the 16 level picture, you can take a 128 by 128 picture or a 256 by 256 picture. And then you can, when you see it, you can dither it 2 different ways, as ordered and summation dither. And then there's a 16 color display, which is pretty ugly.
Oh, wow.
But there's nothing really in memory there. Let's see if I can take a picture. 120.
If I remember too, it had an option. It could save 16 levels of gray, and when you did printouts, you could actually see the full 16. If I remember, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
And, that's being fed with just like the yellow composite cable, right? It's an RCA input there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's,
okay.
RCA out on the VCR.
Okay.
And actually, I wanted to show you, since I'm an astrophotographer, I have telescopes and a little observatory in my backyard. I came up with this. This is a small camera that'll fit in your eyepiece.
Okay.
And when I first tested this out in my observatory, I guess it's a composite out. And when you plug this in, you absolutely see nothing because it has to be hooked up to a telescope. So I knew the thing worked, but I didn't have that VCR until yesterday. I went to Goodwill and picked it up for $5.99. I have. I wanted to show you this. I have so much junk here. Let's see. Where did I put it?
Didn't you just post you got a couple of Model 100 portable computers at a thrift store?
Yes, I did.
You
for
booger.
$1. They were $49.
You booger. You booger.
I waited 2 weeks.
While he's looking there, you should mention John Linville's comment too.
Yeah, let's see. Let me scroll back here. So John Linville says, viewing the live video through the DS-69 is what convinced me that reasonable video playback on a CoCo could be possible in the first place for what it's worth. Yes, very cool.
Wow, cool. Now you can see it's a pretty good picture from far
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
From even close up, I mean...
That's kind of like me, too. I take a pretty good picture from far away, too. So yeah.
I think the jury's still out on that.
Let's see. There's the pictures taken. Now I go back to here's the different dithers. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of dark.
Yeah, we can see it. What monitor is that, by the way?
This is the CM8.
CM8 on a CoCo 3. So we're looking at this with no artifacting.
Right.
Yeah, that's easier to see.
RGB mode. Yeah, no, that looks really nice.
This is summation dither.
Wow.
And then says here's the color.
Oh, wow.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's hurting my eyes.
Yeah.
Make it stop. I promise I'll be good.
And a quick question to Nick. You later did a digitizer yourself, the Digiscan, the RASCAN. Did you have any knowledge of how the DS-69 worked, or was that a totally independent project? Or
I had more knowledge of the Amiga's DigiView digitizer and how it worked. So I tried to model the Digiscan or RASCAN on that. Not so much.
Okay, so it had nothing to do with the DS-69 or 69B.
No.
Okay.
All right, so that's
it looks
pretty
really
much
good.
Basically it. You save them off on your on drive 1 on a blank floppy. It's right in there, and you can save off whatever levels that you've captured. It's a lot of fun.
That's
neat.
neat.
It's a lot of fun to go back and look at. I used to have an old Quasar camera. It was about this big. It had a lens on the front, had a handle on it, and it did nothing. All it did was provide a video, color video. It just had a cable that came out and went to a VCR that you recorded with. Now that is back, in the 80s, and that was probably a late 70s camera. But I did a lot of pictures of myself and things at home with that and digitized it.
That's
now
cool.
You can't find a camera with a composite out.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of maybe that little camera I showed you. If I put a lens on there, I could probably get it to work like a camera, but it has to be able to focus. Plus, I don't know, I just might find something at Goodwill. You never know.
You just never know. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
In the live chat, Solstice was asking about a video demo. I think he's talking about Ed Snyder's Media Player, because he was asking about the kind of Japanese animation black and white video. What do we got there? Rainbow on Disc. Ooh.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of these too that I've.
Those are originals.
Yes.
God, you got such a treasured collection. I'd like to be in your will. I don't want you to pass anytime soon or anything, but I would just like to be your beneficiary. That's all.
Hey, Ron. There's
my rainbow
wow
collection. There's a lot of them in there. I don't know if I have them all, but I have a lot of them.
Wow, that is so cool. Hey, Ron, are you coming to Tandy Assembly?
I would like to. It depends on money,
Okay.
So
it'd be great to get you out there and get some of your collection on display.
If we pay off a couple of bills in time, it might be pretty easy to do it. But until
then, that would be cool.
You guys had talked about this color mouse. I have that.
Neat. That looks like a actual Logitech Microsoft style mouse.
2-button one.
Yeah.
And then there's another gadget I wanted to show. People over the time have made interesting devices.
High-res interface for joystick and mouse. Cassette?
Yeah, cassette. And you could bypass the high-res and just have a regular joystick.
Okay.
Without having to unplug everything, you just put that in and flick a switch, and you've got a regular cassette port or the high res.
You can see all these cables.
Wow, quite the collection.
Yeah. It's pretty ingenious. Even on the back, it's labeled.
Wow. So you have your basic output ones, and then you've got multiple inputs that you can kind of switch through. Yeah.
So
that was kind of necessary because the high-res joystick interface took a joystick port and the cassette port to work.
Right.
So if you wanted to load anything off cassette, you had to unplug everything and plug that in. You just have to flick a switch.
That's neat. That's neat.
There's one thing else I wanted to show is this is a CoCo Max that I got from somebody. And remember, you had to have this in your machine. This is actually mine. I got this from somebody else. But on the top is a joystick port. You had to put a joystick in there because this is the high-res module, basically.
Okay. Right.
But are you guys aware that they somebody hacked it so that on CoCo 1 or 2 you can run CoCo Max without these?
Yeah. I don't remember who did it. Was it Chet Simpson who did the hack? I can't even remember now.
I don't know. It's not. Is that particular version in the archives?
I haven't looked, to be honest. I know I have it hidden away on one of my 800 discs somewhere, but
Yeah, that's another thing I have. I have a stack of bins that are full of floppies, and I went through a whole bunch of my Max files that are saved from this thing here, and from I think CoCo Max makes them Max files.
Yeah,
they're low res artwork. And what's neat is I went through a lot of my stuff from work when I used to use the CoCo for jobs. I would take this scanner here. Well, actually, I would take my camera out to a job. I would videotape the building, and then I'd come back and digitize the front of the building, and I'd make a sketch of the sign and put that up on the building so the customer could see what his sign would look like before, when I'm selling the job to him. He can get an idea what it's going to look like. Back then, it was like awesome. It was nobody else did anything like that, and I was doing it with, it was black and white. It wasn't. It was like the precursor to new stuff. Nowadays they do it all the time. I'm sure. I've been out of it maybe 10 years, so I'm not sure in the sign business what they're doing, but I certainly would do it.
Yeah. That's like
showing somebody what the sign looks like already, done.
Pre-visualization. You're basically showing like a render. Nowadays,
it's WYSIWYG for the sign industry.
Yeah. Nowadays, everybody's doing like virtual 3D tours, and you can design a blueprint and show you a 3D model of what something's going to look like. But back then, that was really revolutionary.
And this is my old Disto 4-in-1 controller with the option for a printer ribbon on the side.
Yeah, I had the 3-in-1 version myself.
So it never was easy to carry around unless you roll it up. But that has software that they gave you, and it's all CoCo 2 stuff. You can switch between DOSes. You hit DOS 0. First DOS comes up as CDOS. Second one is my ADOS, and third one is RS-DOS, and then the last one was J and M DOS on that controller. So it's fun to software switch between them. You can only do it. You could do it either by pokes, or and you could do that, I guess, in a program if you wanted to access one. But it's neat to when you first start up to go ahead and switch to the one you want and take off and do what you're going to do. So that's cool. That's pretty much all I have today. I can show you my Model 102s that I got. I ran across a program that you can input. It's a machine language program that changes the date because it's not year 2000 compliant. When you turn it on, it says January 1st, 1900 or something.
That's really retro.
Yeah, so if you run this little binary program, it'll set the last 2 digits to, it's not even 2000. It just sets the digits to the year. And in that machine, when you set the date and the date of the week, it wasn't linked at all to the year, so it's an easy fix. Like, that was fun.
Cool.
Next week after this one, I'll be back and I'll show other stuff that I've got. I've got a ton of cartridges. I have tons and tons of these things here.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch that are in their original boxes still, and that's fun to look at. They've never been touched.
Neat.
That's about it.
That's cool. Rick Adams just joined us. Hey, Rick, how are you?
Hey, Rick.
Very, very cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Very cool section.
Hey, have you got your CoCo 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of Ram and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
All right, we are back, and we have with us now Mr. Bruce Moore, the author of Forest of Doom, our work-in-progress Forest of Doom, author of many other great titles available on T&D software at your local CoCo retailer near you. And so on your journey of working on your project that's 30 some odd years in the making, which was original. Oh, hold on. What's Curtis holding up here? Let's zoom in on Curtis here for a second. What do you got here? We got T&D software right there. Color computer cassette number 50, volume 50. Very
he'd have
cool.
to let me know which ones he specifically did, because I've got about a half a dozen or a dozen of them. So
neat. Might need to get those autographed too, so when that happens. Very cool. So you're working on Forest of Doom right now, which you're doing mostly in normal color basic, which is built into the ROM. But then you've also started to dip your toes into the water that is BASIC-09 on the OS9 operating system, right? Oh, and you've even got the manual. Very cool. So I have that video, and now I just got to find it real quick. So hold on one second. You prepared a small video for us, and let me switch over where we can see it, where we can show you your little demo of doing BASIC-09 here for 1 second. So can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
my first attempt getting into BASIC-09 on ECC.
So we've got a Nitrous 9 hard drive, and we've got a Nitrous 9 boot disk in our floppy. You can see that.
Just to see if I can get it all together.
Hearing a little bit of echo, if anybody's got their speakers on or not.
Okay, here we are. So, VED. It's real quiet. Specify file name. Okay. Specify file name. Make one called test.v09. I can make up anything I want apparently for an extension. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so you're using VED is what, a text editor, right?
So that's ready to go. Now I'm going to flip, which I believe is a clear key on the CoCo, and I'm using another key. I'm using like function back arrow or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting to another window here.
Okay, you just mentioned that you're switching windows right now.
Okay, but I'm not using this editor. I'm going to flip back to the other one. I'm flipping through these other windows. Okay, here we are. Now.
You just flip back to your editor, you said.
Make sure I go procedure. Otherwise, I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. Print. Hello. World. can do, let's see, Alt X. Yes, save it, please. New file name? No. If I did Alt and Q, it would have saved and quit. Now, I flip back over to BASIC-09, and if I type dir, I get nothing. Because it didn't save there, I have to go use $sign to get to the shell and look there. And there is test BO9 in the bottom left-hand corner. So, now we go load.
Now you're mentioning that you're going to load in your test BASIC-09 file.
Ready. Run. Hello world. Could I have done this? Apparently not. Why is that? Don't know. Don't care at this point.
It says, I don't know, I don't care at this point. That's cool, though. All right, so let me switch back where we can all see what we're talking about again. But very cool. So you booted up OS 9 on VCC, of all emulators. You had an OS 9 boot disk on a floppy that got you to a hard drive. You ran VED, which was a text editor. You typed in a very small program, loaded that into BASIC-09, and ran it. So just kind of showing that things can be done in BASIC-09. And from what Curtis has told me, it's faster for a variety of reasons. Yes. And cool stuff. So anything else you'd like to share with us on your experiences with BASIC-09 right now?
Well, I mean, not a whole lot. I'm fighting through the sort of the emulators. So I've switched over to MAME on my Mac, and I've got that reasonably working now. And then there's these tiny little syntax things. So I'm looking at a piece of code, wondering why is this not running? And and then it's like, then I see, well, when I'm doing this type command, you don't use curly braces, you got to use square ones. Okay, fine. So a whole bunch of silly little things like that, because I'm used to basic syntax otherwise. So far, fun. It's being the BASIC-09 is a structured language. There's a lot more power and flexibility, self-documenting. I expect that once I just get used to the new syntax and the key combinations with MAME, that I can probably put something together a lot faster than if I started trying to write something in assembly right now. My brother gave me a great idea for a spin-off of Forest of Doom, which I thought I would, as my first little foray into BASIC-09, I thought I'd try something like that. So a sequel, as it were.
Very cool.
Yeah, and Curtis has been a lot of help. Curtis has been a lot of help on the BASIC-09, and then David Ladd's been helping me get the whole MAME thing figured out, and why my image from Bill Noble wasn't booting. Turned out I was pointing to the CoCo 3 ROM, the 6809 ROM, not the 6. What's the other one?
6309.
6309. Yeah. Well, as soon as we sorted that out, then everything worked again. So, but need the expertise of the other people in the community to point me in the right direction.
Very cool. And we have plenty of that.
Did you have any questions based on that video that you wanted to ask while we're on the air, so that other people can learn at the same time? Like you had a couple questions, I think, during your video even. Oh, well, let me see here. At the end, I was just wondering whether I could say run and the file name. And okay. No. I can explain that. There's a local directory for your procedures in BASIC-09, because you can have multiple procedures in your loaded in RAM. So when you're doing dir and stuff, it's showing your RAM copies that are in BASIC-09 itself. So you can run a certain procedure. You have a procedure named test. You have another one called test2, another one called test3. So you do run test2, test3. It won't load it from disk, because that is meant to only run within your current BASIC-09 workspace. So you can have multiple procedures in one file. If you went to your VED editor and you made procedure test 2, procedure demo, or whatever, if you load them up into BASIC-09, you'll suddenly see all three of them pop up, and then you can run them individually from there. Right. And so if I call from a BASIC-09 program, I call a procedure which isn't currently in RAM. My understanding is it's going to go looking for it on a disk. Is that right? If it's packed, yes. If you've packed it down and semi-compiled it, if you're trying to run it just from raw source code like you're doing right now, on the demo, then no, it won't go run and get it. It'll try to get it within BASIC-09's workspace first. If it can't find it, then it'll go into your commands directory and try to get a packed one. It doesn't have to be a BASIC-09 program. You can call assembly language programs, C programs, Pascal programs, Fortran, COBOL, whatever you want.
Yeah, that's another thing I find I think would be really cool, because with RS Basic, I would occasionally call small little machine language code bits, and it looks like it'll be even easier under BASIC-09 to do that very same thing. So I'm looking forward to fiddling with that too.
Yeah, you can call like graphic display viewers. You can call them the play command I did that plays WAV files and all kinds of things. So yeah.
Yeah, and did I hear you say something about Ed Snyder's drivers maybe ending up in OS 9?
Well, we were talking about it for doing the streaming, and it's definitely capable of doing it. I mean, you'll basically cut multitasking out during the duration of it. But yeah, there's no reason you couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that creates a lot of possibilities for game development, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's cool. It. That's cool. So you're working on a project right now that's using traditional BASIC, ROM-based BASIC, and so you're already thinking about a follow-up, a sequel that might run in BASIC-09. So that's kind of cool. It's nice to see people testing these new platforms and taking it. I can't imagine what was the next to what you're doing now. What's the most recent project that was written in BASIC-09? I'm sure there might be some people at home who are maybe doing something, but as far as what the community knows about and might be an actual product that we're going to be able to get our hands on sometime, it's kind of cool that there's going to be a new project and a new game or whatever written in BASIC-09 in 2017. Kind of cool. Cool. Well, thanks for blazing the trail there, Bruce.
Sure, it's fun.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah. I know Bill and I, we use BASIC-09 for our work development because we were basically a rapid application development, RAD programming. You had to write a program as quick as possible, not run it as fast as possible, but write it as quick as possible. And BASIC-09 was so much faster than doing it in C or assembly. So we wrote everything for literally 15 years using BASIC-09.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, that's my hope too. Like if I don't want to spend the next 3 years trying to write another game for the CoCo. Like I'd like to get it out, get it done and get it out. And I'm not doing graphic intensive stuff, so the speed is not as important.
Okay, Grant Leighty is asking the question, is BASIC-09/Nitrous-09 being updated? And then he's also saying, how is BASIC-09 better than RS Basic?
I will let Bruce answer the second one because he's kind of learning that as he goes, and I'm a little bit biased. As far as the first one, yes. I mean, David has been helping fix some bugs. We're actually working on trying to get some 6.309 optimizations into OS 9 or Nitrous 9 level 1 for the 6.809 because there's some, and 6.309 because there's some spots there that weren't updated that should be, like high speed TFM scrolling and clear screens and stuff like that. So yeah, it's still being actively worked on. I mean, DriveWire and stuff. If we get this new SDC streaming driver, that'll be another update. We want to get Nick and John's high-res joystick interface to replace the high-res joystick adapter, so you don't need the hardware and still get the full resolution. That should be doable as a driver too. I mean, Bill and I have talked about that. I mean, I'm just waiting to actually have time to actually turn my CoCo back on again. That won't be for another month, but yeah, no, it's still being actively updated. And if Bruce, if you want to say what, like BASIC obviously very well from doing your game, and now that you're working with BASIC-09, you're kind of seeing through in the manual what kind of stuff. How would you explain that it's better than the regular?
Well, so my first foray into programming was with Radio Shack Basic. So procedural language follows line by line with line numbers and all that. When I kind of got out of that and I was at university and studied Pascal and various other languages, structured languages, no line numbers, they would call little bits of reusable code here and there, way more flexible. Not having, and it's getting rid of the line numbers, resume code, all that kind of stuff is just basically, if you want to know the difference, look up the difference between procedural and structural languages. Google that. That'll explain it to you pretty much. It looks far more like a modern language. It's not that different than JavaScript that you would write in a modern web browser. That's part of why I'm thinking, yeah, BASIC-09, that'll get me back in the thinking of that kind of scripting. So yeah, and then BASIC-09 semi-compiles. So it's not entirely compiled like assembly language, but It's not entirely interpretive like the RS basics, so it'll run faster. And you can access all the cool stuff OS 9 can do with the different windowing and all that. So I don't know, it sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah. It's a great way to break into OS 9 development and
I know
smaller
one of my
hurdle.
favorite parts of it, to get into a specific example, would be the type structures, which regular BASIC doesn't have whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful when you're dealing with disk files and just keeping track of what the heck you're doing, just internally in memory too. So, and I noticed your one little demo screen you put up on Facebook, you were actually using a type declaration to set up your structure for your monsters and stuff for your games. So.
Yeah. The very first thing I went to when I saw the type in there, I just okay, that's awesome. I'm going straight to it. I'll see if I can make it work. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. In the live chat, Norlander is asking, how much more difficult is BASIC-09 under Nitrous 9 than regular OS 9? Is it more difficult? Is it you run it the same way?
It's exactly the same.
Loads the same,
there's
runs
no
the
difference
same?
except it runs faster.
Okay. Okay, so
I did optimize a little bit of BASIC-09 back in the day, and I think that's part of the current distribution, so I sped up some of the math routines and stuff, so it'll run a little bit faster on certain integer math and some integer divide and integer multiply for 16-bit numbers and stuff than the original did, because I'm using the 609 instructions to do so. But as far as the language itself, it's identical.
Okay. Cool. And Grant Leighty is asking, what's a good book to learn BASIC-09?
Well, the BASIC-09 manual itself is actually, the level 2 manual is quite good. The level 1 manual wasn't as good, to be honest. And then there's the BASIC-09 tour guide by,
Puckett?
Is it
Dale Puckett?
No, I think, who did?
Well, I'm looking at it here now. BASIC-09 tour guide, it says Dale L. Puckett Microware. I've got it on my iPad here.
Oh, is it Dale? I thought it was Peter Dibble. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. But if you got the book there, yeah.
Well, this is one, and there's I think that's the basic. Yeah, that's the BASIC-09 one.
Yeah, it's Chef of Black cover.
And are those all available in the Color Computer Archive, or a handful of them, anyways?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Look on the Color Computer Archive, which, by the way, is available on one of our sponsors, I'mACoconut.com, for all your Color Computer Link needs. You can get to the Color Computer Archive. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing. Do we have more to talk about, or can we take a quick break and move on to another segment?
Does anybody else on the call that's active have any questions about BASIC-09 before we hit the next segment?
Okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to go on and look at a few things that are in the Facebook group this week. So we'll be right back after these messages.
And now, these messages.
On screen.
Greetings, YouTubers. Atari Leaf here, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
Stevie Stroh here, and when you're done with CoCoTALK, if you gotta have more cowbell, then head on over to my YouTube channel for your share of gameplay goodness. There you will find over 1,300 family-friendly gameplay videos. Everything from the old school to the next gen, and over 200 color computer gameplay videos, as well as interviews and replays of CoCoTALK. So if you need your share of gameplay goodness, then check out the original gamer Stevie Stroh on YouTube at youtube.com/OG Stevie Stroh.
Hello, my name is Grant Leighty, and thank you for watching the CoCoTALK with your host, Stevie Stroh. You got your Coco 3 yet?
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and when you are done with CoCoTALK, why not head on over to my YouTube channel and get your share of gameplay goodness. There you will find everything from the old school to the next gen. There are video game reviews, interviews, how-tos, and replays of CoCoTALK. So for all of your video game needs on YouTube, head on over to youtube.com/OG Stevie Stroh for your share of gameplay goodness today.
Well, there we go. So a little plug for gameplay goodness on YouTube. If you got to have more cowbell and you need some more games to watch, check out my YouTube channel. So what was going on this week in Facebook? Well, here we have Simon Jonassen, the madman, as we all know and love. And he continues to work on these 3D rotating demos. and continues to optimize them and just continues to throw more cowbell at the graphics level of detail and the smoothness and things like that. So it's very cool looking. What was this thing here called? The Tesseract, when you've got a cube within a cube and it's rotating 360 degrees. So that's his latest posting that he's put in the Facebook group. It looks very, very cool. Of course, we at the beginning of the show we talked about how Nick Marentes released to the public his Pac-Man version 1.1 update with darker colors of blue on the maze and some of the optimizations of the speed and the intermissions running a little bit faster. Here is now what's Bart's deal? He's in the Netherlands, right? So Bart, and he's basically his claim to fame right now. He's got the largest TRS-80 collection in Europe, I think, is what he's saying. And so he's always showing something that he's picking up and adding to his collection here. So it looks like he's got, is this a Model 3 that he picked up? Okay, is that a Model 3?
4.
Model 3 or 4. Well, it looks like it's missing a couple keys down there towards the bottom.
I would guess a 4 because it's kind of white, isn't it? Because the 3s were gray, battleship gray.
Right. So low serial number, or 4177 is the serial number there. So yeah, that's a kind of a cool collection there, and that's kind of like what Ron's been doing too. Ron Delvaux has been posting a lot of pictures of everything here too. So here we got Steve Bjork had mentioned something too, where he was asking some questions on how to get up and running quickly with assembly development. Here's a picture of some CRTs running. Here we go. Here we have a Commodore next to a CoCo, next to an Apple, and we talk about this whole community thing right here. Bill Smith posted this picture here. Find a CRT. I don't even remember what the question was. What was the original question? From Hugo. Okay. Hugo was asking the Sega Phaser light gun thing. So that discussion has come up now too, right? So if you...
It kind of explained exactly why it doesn't work on current flat screen LCD TVs.
Okay.
That whole discussion. So that's what brought it up.
Yeah, light guns were a cool thing, but because of the timing, they had to be off of the CRT. And this was discussed in the CoCo Crew podcast, one of the early episodes. Basically, a CRT is faster. It's a faster refresh rate than an LCD panel is. Because the beams are right, you're writing to the screen. You're directly writing to the screen, whereas a panel has to receive all of the visual data, process that, and then display it. And there's a millisecond difference to where you're behind the 8 ball on trying to capture some of that light gun data. Very cool stuff. Here's some pictures of Ron Klein running Pac-Man 1.1 on his CoCo Pi. Ron says he's going to probably be available next week, so I've been holding off showing the RetroPie color computer setup because I really want Ron to help talk about that. So here's him showing off Nick Marentes' latest Pac-Man on MAME on Raspberry Pi. Very cool stuff. There's me plugging CoCoTALK. Somebody asked this question. I think you asked the question too, Bruce, because this guy's saying, hey, I've upgraded to 512K. I've got some leftover RAM. Does anybody need it? Is old CoCo 3 RAM usable on anything?
Yes. The later CoCo 2s used the 2-chip upgrade using 4464 chips instead of the 84164s.
Okay.
Those are the exact same chips that are in the 128K machines. You have enough RAM there to upgrade 2 CoCo 2s, late models, to 64K.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So there is a use for it. Nick Marentes is mentioning that Popstar Pilot is still available, so he's got a link to his blog there. Very cool stuff. Great game. Ron Delvaux, maybe next week you can show us your dragon, Ron. So Ron's got pictures of his Tano dragon that he's taken out of the box and showed up here. That guy has got more stuff than should be legal for any one person to have. Here's a picture of Bruce Moore showing off some of his BASIC-09. It says right here, BASIC-09 is happening. And here's some of his code right here. Read monsters.
There's that type statement at the top. Man, makes it so much easier to code stuff. You can read it.
Yeah.
Like, show me the strength of the monster. I can type monster.strength, and there it is,
Wow.
Great.
So, yeah, that's so even having variable names that are not 2 letters, that in itself is is better than MS for monster strength, right? So, or multiple sclerosis
is just awesome. It's cool.
And just other variable types, like you mentioned, you can see there, he's got like a Boolean as well as some integers as well as some strings.
Yeah.
So yeah, you've got a lot of things you can play with.
But 2 letters is all you need.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 letters is all you. Who needs more than that?
Yeah.
Who'd
Yeah,
ever
it's
need
just
more
like
than
640
60?
Just like 640K.
Right. Here's Ron Delvaux posting about the CoCo SDC code and posting us some flag. This was interesting, and I didn't even want to comment on this because I just figured I'm not going to be that guy. But this guy posted a CoCo 2 for sale. He wanted something like $124 starting price on, and there was no even accessories. So for those of us who've been watching eBay for a while, you kind of know that CoCo 2s are in about the $60 to $70 price range is what they sell for. So his starting price seemed a little high. But I figured I would reserve judgment and reserve comment, but that didn't stop Carlos Camacho from saying, "Dude, what's up with that price?"
I think he has dropped the price since then,
yeah,
because he
yeah.
didn't really know what yeah. For, so.
And I just remember the same thing when I first started looking for CoCos on eBay. I didn't know what to expect. The first CoCo 2 I bought, I think I spent $100, but it was a CoCo 2 64K. It was modded with composite output. It came with a flat panel LCD television. It came with a cassette recorder and a bunch of other stuff. And that was $100. But there was another guy who was selling just a CoCo 2 for $96, and it was only a 16K CoCo 2. And I compared that to everything else that was being sold there. And I even messaged the guy. I go, I think your asking price is a little high since it's not even 64K. But that guy was hell bent on wanting $100 for a 16K CoCo 2. I doubt he ever sold it. There has to be kind of a fine line from what people are willing to pay. The CoCo 3s really seem to go up in price. They seem to start off offering price of $100 to $150, and they end up selling sometimes up into $300s, which is it's a little bit sought after because they're less common, it seems.
Yeah.
But $124 CoCo 2 is a little bit high, I think.
Unless it came with some other stuff.
Yeah, if it was a bundle, that'd be different. Now, Hugo DeFort's been posting some pictures of some demos he's working on where he's coming up with plasma displays and working with color and dithering and things like that. So that's been kind of interesting to see some of his posts and some of his demos and stuff like that. Ed Snyder posted the fact that he's going to work on a 16-bit Super DAC to not only get stereo output, but also at 44 kilohertz, which is basically CD quality. So when you're talking about 16-bit stereo at 44 kilohertz, but it has to be run on a CoCo 3 double speed, we're basically getting CD quality output from this card he's designing. And he mentioned something like, well, if you're gonna overdo it, why not overdo it all the way? And then I basically said to him that I'm like, well, dude, you just need to put this on a CoCo SDC and throw in a couple of sound chips while you're at it too, because then we wouldn't even need a multi-pack. If you had the CoCo SDC and 16-bit DACs and a sound chip, boom, you're good, you're golden. And I think it's all possible in the realm of technology, but that's a little over my head when some of that stuff has to take place. So yeah, a lot posting for Tandy Assembly. We're gonna after the next commercial break, we're gonna show the Tandy Assembly website and some of the changes and additions there. Here, Mark McDougall is teasing at something, which I believe he's teasing at. He might be doing something with asteroids, but who else is supposedly working on an asteroid?
Click on the comments because he's got an updated photo.
Okay, he's got an updated photo on the comments. Okay, so he's posting his website. Okay, so here's an updated photo. So it's looking like a port of asteroids is probably in the making on a CoCo 3. And this
transcode.
Transcode, meaning the original source code's being done. Very cool. And since Simon's been doing a lot of this vector art, this is kind of cool that that's happening. A lot of cool stuff. So we're gonna talk about Tandy Assembly next. Here's somebody posting a keyboard with 4 function keys, a CoCo 1 keyboard. Yeah, and I think Michael Brandt was mentioning this one time too, when somebody made a comment like, well, if you're talking about an F1 key, it's got to be a CoCo 3. And Michael Brandt chimed in and says, well, I've got a CoCo 1 with a F1, F2, F3, and F4. So, it's a nice looking keyboard.
Yeah, there was multiple third-party keyboards. The Mark Data Products was basically the black one with just a standard CoCo key layout, the standard 53 keys. I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but they made 2, and they made a premium one and a professional one. One of them had 4 function keys kind of scattered all over the place, and then they made one that kind of lined up the keys better to match the CoCo 1.2 layout. Another one, Keytronics, made one with just a single programmable key they labeled PF. And then the HAL57, which is one you showed there, had the 4 on the bottom, which I think was better layout. And if I remember correctly, one of them actually clicks and locks in, so you could program it to be like a caps lock.
Okay. Interesting. Another question here. My cat wants to come in. The CoCo cat's joining CoCoTALK. So somebody was asking a question here, Jim Port, about what font is closest to the original font that appeared on the Color Computer cartridges, and it looks like somebody came in and said that the font now is called Micro Extended. And there was one, somebody suggested one that's called Microgramma. Now there's another one called Micro Extended, and here's kind of a screenshot of some of the fonts of the original versus some reproductions. And so I guess if you wanted to do a modern Color Computer cartridge and you wanted to try to capture that font style, that might be one right now. So that's been an interesting little discussion that's been going on there. And it's really neat that when somebody has a question like this, people chime in. Now, granted, yes, the same level of communication and activity takes place on the mailing list, but it's not as visual. So when you're talking about a font and you want to see the font and you can actually look at the picture real time and not have to open up a link and go to another website where that lives, this is where I think the power of Facebook is very helpful when it comes to having the community kind of collaborate here. And this was a really good example of that. Just coming together. Really cool. Carlos Camacho showing some other computer system here, the NEC 6001, which also uses the same Motorola VDG chip that the CoCo does and what they're doing with it. Pretty cool stuff. So yeah, a little peek into the Facebook group. And so if you're not already a member of that and you're not one of these people that has to wear a tinfoil hat and you're worried about, all that kind of privacy stuff, and you're willing to join social media, I would definitely suggest you might want to check out the TRS-80 Color Computer group on Facebook. Lots of good stuff going on there. Anybody else got anything they want to chime in about and what's been going on in Facebook this week?
Can't think of anything off the top of my head.
No.
Lots of stuff.
Always good stuff. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back, and we're going to see what's the latest, greatest thing going on with Tandy Assembly.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Randy Kindig of the Floppy Days podcast. I just love me some CoCo, and nobody covers it better than Steve Strobridge. You're listening to CoCoTALK.
We're traveling through a dimension both of sound and ideas. We're at a place where the mind can comprehend and devise a solar radio, a wireless transmitter, measure time and light. 65 electronic projects brought to reality with this science fair kit. Astonishing? Perhaps. But you can find it for Christmas for $17.95 in a place that's known as Radio Shack.
Radios, stereos, recorders, everything in sound.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's me. It's Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. Gameplay goodness. To get your very own Gameplay Goodness DVDs featuring color computer games played by the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh, visit 8bit256.com and grab yourself a CoCo Gaming DVD today. That's 8bit256.com for all of your Gameplay Goodness needs.
Fletcher, I don't need that report tomorrow.
Great, JT.
I need it tonight.
But, JT...
Fletcher saved $300 on her office away from the office. Radio Shack's revolutionary Model 100 computer. It's a word processor, phone directory, and dialer. It even communicates with the office computer.
Fletcher, how's that report? Fletcher.
Radio Shack's Model 100. Save $300 and put it to work.
You'll go far, Fletcher. You'll go far.
From Radio Shack, the TRS-80 Model 3. And at $200 off, it's a great value. Select from Radio Shack's huge program library. To aid your children's education, plan your personal and household budgets, or to entertain with fast-action games. You can even learn to write programs. The TRS-80 Model 3, on sale for $7.99, only at Radio Shack and Radio Shack Computer Centers, the computer experts.
Between 1977 and 1994,
Tandy and Radio Shack produced a wide array of prolific personal and business computers. Chances are you've used one. And now there's a new event designed to celebrate all of these computers in one place. Introducing Tandy Assembly. Come see your favorite computers, or maybe some that you missed. October 7th and 8th in Ohio's first capital city, Chillicothe. See presentations by TRS-80 creator Don French. Creator of Dogstar Adventure, Lance Miklas. And Scott Adams of Adventure International. For details, visit our webpage at www.tandyassembly.com. Some assembly is required.
Hi, I'm Mike Rowan, and you're watching The Original Gamer, Stevie Stroh. And when you're done watching, come over and listen to the CoCo Crew podcast.
Hi, this is John Linville. And Neil Blanchard. We are the CoCo Crew. I hope you're enjoying watching Stevie Stroh play video games, especially the CoCo games. And when you're done with that, check out our podcast at CoCoCrew.org.
Tandy Assembly offers attendees a unique opportunity to meet and interact with other fans of Radio Shack and Tandy computers from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Something new is here.
Speakers include TRS-80 creator Don French, author of Star Trek III and Dogstar Adventure Lance Miklas, and game designer Scott Adams of Adventure International. Vendors include Bartlett Labs, Cloud9, Neil's Computer Service, Retro Innovations, Retro Tinker. Meet podcasters from Floppy Days, the CoCo Crew Podcast, TRS-80 Trash Talk, and YouTube sensation The Original Gamer Stevie Stroh. Join us for 2 days of retro computing fun in Chillicothe, Ohio, October 7th and 8th. For more information, visit our website at www.tandyassembly.com.
That was the multi-talented Myros production right there. That Mike Rowan, that man can make some stuff, can he? Commercials, videos, you name it, he can do it. Great segue, great lead into the Tandy Assembly website right now. And here's one of the newest developments. Again, talking about being in the retro hobby, but using modern technology. How about the convenience of being able to pre-register and prepay online using PayPal and not having to wait in line to be logged in on a Color Computer 3 like we have at CoCo Fest. So that's convenient. You know, some of the modern conveniences are not a sin. You know, so here we go. So
in defense of the CoCo Fest one, they were having a problem with the Dynacalc. Something went wrong with the database. I mean, it normally works smooth.
Must have not installed the updates.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there, but they've used that program for 20 years, and
well,
they've never had issues like that.
Every time you plug in the CoCo, it's got to download all the latest updates off the internet, so that does take some time.
Otherwise, it blue screens.
Yeah, it is convenient to be able to pay online and register. So here's the latest look at the Tandy Assembly website. So that's a new feature right now, right? So they're still looking if somebody wants to be a speaker. If you would like to give a presentation at Tandy Assembly, they're still calling for that. You can still get your early bird registration discount right now through August 31st if you wanted to be an exhibitor. So that is kind of cool. Lots of Tandy artwork here. You can see the different models here. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of these on display when we get there in October. Here's the venue, right? So this is the Christopher Conference Center in Chillicothe, Ohio. What's going to be happening here? Exhibits, speakers, auctions, and socializing. That's some of the stuff that's going on. Let's see what the latest lineup of exhibitors are, if anybody new is here. So we've got myself and Mike Rowan and Richard Lorbieski. Peter Satinsky, Cloud9 is going to be here. Richard Bartlett, Malcolm Ramey, Randy Kindig, Retro Innovations, our friend Jim Brain, Ian Maverick. That was a great interview I listened to with him and Randy Kindig of Floppy Days. Ian Maverick's kind of like the Australian version of our Ed Snyder. He's got a hardware contraption for just about everything. Brendan Donahue's CoCo VGA project. Alan Hightower is going to be showing off 5 different models of the Tandy 1000 through 5000 series. John Linville's here with his retro tinkering. Hopefully some more maybe Game Master sound cartridge stuff to show off. Evan Wright with his Text Adventure development kit. Scott Adams from Adventure International. Mike Brandt, my carpool partner, will be there. And Rick Adams showing off Bomb Threat the game. So that's our current exhibitor lineup. Looking good. And what about our speaker lineup right now? Oh, see, Rick Adams has been promoted. He's moved up the food chain. He's now a keynote speaker. Not just a speaker, but a keynote speaker. No pressure, Rick. So, along with Scott Adams, Don French, Lance Michaelis, some of our keynote speakers. Okay, John Linville keeping CoCo in the game, so that'd be interesting to hear what else he's got going on with that. Peter Satinsky, a history of the Model 2 line, some schmuck here. Brendan Donahue, talking about updating extended color basic to support 64-column text, and then Randy Kindig of the Floppy Days podcast. Today's portable computers, Tandy's portable computers through the years. Very, very cool. With sponsors from The Right Stuff, Ian Maverick, and John Benson.
Hey, Steve?
Yeah. Is that you, Rick?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I saw that I had been promoted to keynote speaker, I thought, oh, rats, that means I'm going to be in the back row of the plane again. Because the last and only 2 times I've been a keynote speaker, separated by 30 years,
right.
Both times, by coincidence, I was in the back row of the plane. But then I thought, oh, wait, I can't be in the back row of the plane. I'm driving.
So hopefully you'll be at least in the front seat of the car, right? So, yeah. And by the way, a very nice shirt you're wearing there, Rick. Rick's wearing the official CoCoTALK T-shirt. Very cool. Looking good there.
Yep.
Yeah, so Tandy Assembly is coming along. I'm really excited about what's going to be happening at this event. And, when we talked about earlier, the Coleco event, which was what not to do, to not only not include the community, but to almost kind of like shun and punish the community. That's not a good recipe for success when it comes to having an event and having a good turnout to that event, where Tandy Assembly is combining, the TRS-80, Z80 line of people and the PC compatible Tandy 1000 line of people, obviously the Coconuts. A lot of different Tandy systems have existed for 20 years, from the 70s through the 90s. It's a lot of lineage there. And they're doing a good job with a lot of different podcasts promoting it too, between the Floppy Days podcast, the TRS-80 Trash Talkers, and the CoCo Crew podcast, and now us as well talking about it. So we're definitely trying to expose people, letting people know about this event and getting some people in there. Grant Leighty in the live chat says, yeah, I love that there's a pre-registration. He's asking, how about credit cards for the auctions? That's a great question. I'd pose that question too, because not everybody carries a lot of cash. And just like, the minute they made fast food and snack machines support debit cards, look how those industries just took off, So look at Bruce showing off the Forest of Doom, the printed manual of Forest of Doom. That looks really good there, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, cool stuff. And so, yeah, if you could use your debit card or credit card in the auction, that would be nice too, because then you might want to spend a little bit more money, especially if you've got a credit card and you're thinking, well, I might not have $400, but I can make easy payments on this. 7 easy payments to pay off this whatever. So hopefully they're thinking about that. So Tandy Assembly, our next big event this year. It's a little over a month away. We're almost at the end of August, and then we got September, and it's the first weekend in October. So it's literally right around the corner. Good stuff. We know Rick's going to be there. Bruce, were you going to be at Tandy Assembly?
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. And Mark, do you remember? I don't remember if you said if you were going to make it or not.
I was hoping to, but not so far.
Okay, and we know Curtis can't, his work schedule, and Nick's not going to be able to make it. Although, Nick, you could probably jump in the suitcase with Ian Maverick or something. He's in Australia. There's got to be a way to piggyback off of that transportation there.
And Australia's got to be small. You guys must be like neighbors or something, right?
It's uphill from down there, on the bottom of the planet.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a climb.
It's a heck of a climb, yeah.
Maybe you should ask the Ozfest people for assistance.
Yeah.
The what? The Ozfest?
Yeah.
What do you mean, to go to the US?
Yeah, take up a collection.
Well, back in 1999 and 2000, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I went to did the Pen Fest in the US.
Yeah.
Same way.
You got to crowdsource that transportation. So
It was pre-PayPal. We had to do that all by hand.
Oh, yeah. Cool
Is
stuff.
that Steve?
Yeah, Rick.
So we're hoping to have bomb threat cartridges at the show.
Yeah.
So that'd be nice.
Yeah.
We shall try.
Okay, that would be exciting. So is bomb threat pretty much done then at this point?
Well, it was, but I got a bright idea last night. There was
feature
of course,
creep.
You know how that is.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, there's a feature I took out that I couldn't figure out how to put back in. And last night I had a brainstorm of, I could, I think I know how to do it. So this weekend's project will be to try to put that feature back in.
Okay.
Just don't miss the shipping deadline.
Right. So have you,
Right.
and not the financial part, but the logistical part of getting these things produced and made. Have you already had those conversations, and do you feel like you do have enough time for them to produce the ROMs and the cartridges and the labeling and stuff for you?
I believe so.
Okay. So that's impressive.
So we,
And you're going to have David try it and break it to make sure it's debugged?
if he wants to.
Yeah. Well, that'll be exciting because, another new cartridge game and the first game from Rick Adams in, 30 years, right?
Right. Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
For the collectors out there, the question that I was asked was, did I want to do shrink wrap on it or not? They have those, the die cut packages,
Mm-hmm.
and they have those red injection molded cartridge cases. So they're putting that all together with a little, like a little 3x5 card instruction manual sort of a thing, and they were asking, should we shrink wrap it or not? And I didn't really, I think we can get by without shrink wrapping it. I just wondered, from a collector's standpoint, what people think.
You should do some of both. Do a few, because there probably will be people who want to shrink wrap.
Is shrink wrap retro though?
Were they?
Ones were shrunk wrap.
Yeah. So that becomes a collector question. Do you want to have it and have it on a shelf and never play it? And if that is the case, then shrink wrapping makes sense. But if you actually want to play it. Right. So do you want to get it autographed? And if you're going to be there and you're going to autograph it, and now you can autograph on top of the shrink wrap, but would somebody like it autographed, on the actual box or on the cartridge itself? So, I don't know what the number of units are you're going to have made, but maybe have, half and half. So if somebody wants to shrink wrap, they'll take it. If somebody doesn't care, they won't. And if somebody says, well, I'm all out of unshrink wrapped ones, but I don't want to shrink wrap, then just tear the damn plastic off, Yeah. And so I was lucky that with the ones I got from John Linville last year, he sent me one cartridge that wasn't even in the box because I wanted to review Farfall for YouTube and to promote CoCo Fest. So I got a unboxed copy of Farfall on a cartridge, and then I also asked him if he could sign all the boxes before he shrink wrapped them. So on mine, they're signed and then wrapped. And so I've got 3 of John's games sitting on a shelf that are autographed and shrink wrapped. And it was timing was lucky for me to do it that way. And it just so happens all those games I can play without opening the package. And same thing with I bought Flood It from Evan Wright, and I asked him to autograph the box, and he autographed on top of the shrink wrap. He actually emailed me the image where I can play it in an emulator. So I would like to have an autograph collectible and a playable one for myself, but I'm probably 1% of that.
I mean, myself personally, I'm not a collector per se. I would collect it to play it. So in my case, it doesn't matter if it has shrink wrap because I'd be tearing that right off as soon as I got it anyway. But I'm not a collector.
Right. So we might do a few. I'm not sure. Or we might not do any at all. They're kind of.
It shouldn't be much of an extra cost. I'm presuming it'd be pretty cheap.
It's just a pain. That's all.
Okay. So I remember we used to have the shrink wrappers at work, and it was just basically this heated little wires with sheets of plastic. You just place the object, hit it, and it would just automatically shrink once it had sealed, and it didn't. You just heated it up, and it was pretty quick. Wasn't too much pain to actually do if you have the equipment.
I think they're going to do on the order of. I think they're going to do on the order of 30 cartridges.
Okay, so maybe
that's what they were.
I would say probably on the just to keep it simple, right? Maybe not do more than 10 that are shrink wrapped, and keep those off to the side. And if somebody wants a sealed copy, you have that. And for anybody else that wants it to play it and get it autographed, because I would imagine, I know for me, I would like an autograph copy. I'll probably buy one of each because I'm that guy. But yeah, I'd probably like an autograph copy. I'd want an autograph on the box, an autograph on the cartridge, and then a seal.
Hey, listen, how about putting a bunch of cartridges in the landfill for a while?
Here's an idea. Shrink wrap the box without the cartridge in it. That way you sell it separate. If they want to keep the shrink wrap copy for their collection on display, they've got the shrink wrap version, but they've still got the cartridge outside to play.
Oh, brother.
We'll be seeing those for years on eBay then.
Yeah, but then it's not quite retro enough, Nick, because then it doesn't weigh the same because there's no cartridge in it.
Stick a lead sinker inside it.
Any of you see the Atari movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I didn't see it, but somebody was mentioning that to me.
Yeah.
Atari Game Over, I believe, was the name.
Right. Cool stuff. Yeah, I guess that's a tough call. And what you're doing is you're introducing more work for the people who are producing it, and then possibly more expense to yourself. So I would say probably you want to minimize those for everybody's sake.
Yeah.
Keep everybody's life
probably
simple.
5 or 10 maybe.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I would say there'll be people who'll be interested. I mean, Steve us, obviously, but there'll be some other people too.
Right.
Cool stuff. All right, so for those of you who are watching us live right now, and we've had a decent viewership all day. We've been up to 2 dozen live viewers. We're at a dozen right now. Hopefully everybody's aware that CoCoTALK is now also available in podcast format, so you can listen to us online. And put together a website for that. It's CoCoTALK.live. As of today, I have 10 episodes already converted to audio, and I've got 3 of our interviews. One of them being Rick Adams, another one is Curtis Boyle, and then we also have the Dale Lear interview up there. And I have we've got a lot of interviews, and I think one of the next ones I want to put up there is the one with the image producers, because there's a lot of great stuff covered there. And most of that translates very well to audio format, because even though we were showing some things off, none of the conversations had to do with what was actually on screen for the most part. So I think that'll be a good listen. And for me, it was fun listening to the Rick interview. Rick was our first scheduled interview. Like Curtis was my first interview. It was very informal. Rick, we scheduled and we planned and we had a list of questions and we promoted it and it was live and everything else. And so Rick was our first big celebrity interview. And even though technically I was there, I was distracted by playing the game and watching the live chat. So to actually sit down and listen to that interview again was kind of nice. So I think it's kind of cool that these things get a whole second life in the audio aftermarket. And I think the response has been pretty good. There are a lot of people saying I really appreciate being able to listen to this because it's easier for my workflow of how I drive and commute and things like that. So I think it's the podcast has turned out to be pretty good. We got close to 400 downloads already, which is pretty good. If that's any indication. So cool stuff. CoCoTALK will be consumable in many ways. I'm actually looking into a few other ways to do it as well, which we'll share later on. Cool stuff. Anything else we want to talk about? We beat this episode to death?
I can't think of anything else in my behalf.
Yeah. Bruce is doing his stuff there, his voiceover. Hey, Bruce, actually, I don't know, Bruce, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Is that the video you're showing there of you doing the voiceover for Forest of Doom?
Yeah.
Do we want to play that?
I'm. Let me see if I can get the audio to come through.
Okay. Wow, you've got a big giant foam block around that microphone there too. You look extremely professional, sir.
All the good tricks.
Yeah.
Yep, a spit guard.
The only thing missing is the tinfoil hat at this point. Are you still there? Now I can't hear you. You're muted.
There's my audio. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that was just my little voiceover setup. I didn't actually use a spit guard. I just kept the microphone below. And then, that foam box is my homemade muffler, basically, for any reflections from the back.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Fun stuff.
But we didn't hear it, though.
Yeah, it was too quiet. I've got another, probably, maybe 2 weeks from now, I'll have another bit that's very podcast friendly that I'll have available for you.
That works.
Cool.
That works.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, maybe we're going to wrap up episode 22 of CoCoTALK Live. And for those of us who are still left on the call, I want to thank Rick Adams for stopping in and Mark Overholzer, Ron Delvaux for sharing some of his cool collections and his little demonstration of that digitizer. Nick Marentes also for sharing Pac-Man 1.1 free to the public release there. Very cool. Curtis Boyle, host of the Color Computer Games List website, and Bruce Moore, author of Forest of Doom and many other fun games available from T&D Software and a CoCo retailer near you. And in the live chat, the first person we had in the live chat today was Steve Powell, who was actually 40 minutes early to the show. Richard Cavell was in the live chat today. Sixie, who is Karen, was in the live chat. Home Computer Museum was in here. John Linville, CoCo Crew Podcast, was joining us today. Norlander was here. Solstice was here. Feiscap was here. Luis Fernandez was in the chat. Grant Leighty in the chat. Grant had to work today, could not join us, so we'll have Grant's hopefully next week Newbie question of the week next week. Am I missing anybody else in the live chat that I did not already mention? Somebody named Crumbopolis Michael was commenting on my Need More Cowbell video. Norlander was commenting as well. Have I missed anybody else? No, I think so. I think we've covered everybody in the live chat and everybody on the call. With us earlier was David Ladd with his tech segment of what David has discovered is broken this week. So another great CoCoTALK. And so what I also want to do is I want to close with some CoCo music, since it'll be hopefully a fun treat for those watching and for those listening later. Trying to include a few more audio segments in the show to make the show a little bit more podcast friendly as well. So everybody want to say goodbye? Anything you want to say before we switch to our closing music track?
Nothing extra to say, but we'll see you next week.
All right, very cool. Thank you all for being here. Don't forget to check us out on the web at CoCoTalk.live. And to play us out, we're going to hear some CoCo music now, folks. Thanks for listening to another episode of CoCoTALK. We certainly hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, why not check us out on the web at CoCoTALK.live, where you can watch video replays of all of our live episodes, as well as send us feedback and suggestions for the show. We'd certainly love to hear from you. Until next week, I'm the original gamer, Stevie Stroh. Keep on CoCoing, CoCo forever. Have a CoCo day, and bye-bye, everybody.